The world was different. Ice and wind dictated their laws, and the sun, low and cold, slid over the horizon like a tired wanderer who did not want to return. It was the time before the complete domination of man, the last age of the Titans, before the dawn of the people. If you are close to the beauty of the ancient Earth, where life is slowly struggling to breathe under the weight of eternal cold, support this project, subscribe and like. Your interest helps bring back to life the images of the world that disappeared under the snow of memory. In the north of Eurasia and across the icy ocean, in the vast expanses of America, endless plains stretched. The tundra steppe is endless, harsh, swaying with wind and prickly grasses, where every hummock, every piece of ice was part of the ancient breathing of the planet. The permafrost preserved the bones of those who did not live to see spring, and the seeds that awaited the rare warmth. The air was as transparent and brittle as glass. To the south, beyond the mountains, forests of dwarf birches and willows trembled, and to the north lay a white void. And in that void, mammoths were moving. They appeared out of the mist like the shadows of the gods, huge, slow and rough with frost. Their trunks moved as if searching for tree branches, and their fangs, long and curved, glistened under the grey light. Mammoths were the kings of the ice pastures, the last lords of the space where life was kept on edge. The female, the old matriarch, walked in front. Her fur was heavy with frost, and her trunk dipped down to the snow, where dry grass hid under a thin crust. She was followed by the young, wary, trusting only in smell and memory. Each of them had an ancient knowledge of the trails in their blood, the path that their family had travelled for centuries, from the hills of winter to the valleys of summer. Migration began when the sun had not yet warmed up the air. A flock of birds stretched high. The snow creaked under the weight of bodies. The wind carried the smell of frozen water and distant steppes. Mammoths left, taking with them not only their offspring, but also the very memory of a world where glaciers were walls and frost was the breath of the earth. The ground was shaking under their feet. With every step, a crust of snow crunched, revealing last year's grass. A young bull, barely mature, lingered at the edge of the valley, cocked his head, sensing the wind. There was a strange smell in it, wolves maybe, or saber-toothed cats. But the matriarch didn't stop. She knew that hunters rarely touch a herd if it is united. The flock moved, forming a living ring around the youngest. The older females strode along the edges, their fangs tracing the air, ready to defend themselves. When the wind picked up, the mammoths huddled closer, with their backs to the storm covering the babies. Their fur, thick and oily, did not let the cold through. Her eyelids were framed by long eyelashes that protected her eyes from the icy needles. Even breathing was adapted to the cold. The air warmed up in the long passages of the nose before reaching the lungs. Their life was an endless movement, not rapid, but confident, like the planet itself. Mammoths walked because the path was their life. On the plains, where nothing had changed for millennia, their steps were a measure of time. As the sun rose higher, its rays fell on the fangs, making them look like white sickles. The matriarch stopped at the frozen riverbed. Under a thin layer of snow, coarse grasses could be seen, surviving under the icy crust. She lowered her trunk, cleared the snow, as if pushing aside the curtain between the times. The young ones followed her movements, the sound of hooves, the rustle of breathing, the soft snoring. Everything merged into one rhythm, but scavenging birds were already circling the horizon. They knew that where there was a herd there would be death. To the north, among the sparse thickets of willows, a shadow moved. Saber-toothed cats. Heavy with low bodies and powerful paws, they lived not in speed, but in an instant. Their eyes glittered amber under the twilight sun. Their fur was thick and their muscles were as tight as steel ropes. They didn't chase for long. They were waiting. Their time came when the mammoths passed close by, when the weak ones separated from the herd, when the wind muffled the sound. A young mammoth 10 paces behind was slowly walking along the slope. He was tired and his breath was steaming. A shadow slid towards him from behind a boulder, a splash of snow, and it was over with almost no sound. The cat clutched at his shoulder, fangs cutting through the thick skin. The mammoth roared, trying to escape. The matriarch turned around. The pack shifted, the roar rolling across the plain. The predator jumped back, knowing that a collision with the herd was certain death. When the sun touched the horizon again, the mammoth was already lying motionless. As if according to an ancient law, others gathered around him: wolves, birds, foxes. Life didn't disappear, it just shifted from form to form. The night brought frost. The air rang. A flock of mammoths slept standing up, covering the babies with their bodies. The moon was reflected in their fangs. No one was moving. Only occasionally could a soft tapping be heard. The mammoth was scratching the snow, looking for grass even in his sleep, not stopping the path. A fire flickered on a distant hill, tiny and almost invisible. People, still sparse, almost shadows. They looked at the mammoths from afar with respect and fear. In their memory, these creatures were not just prey, they were living embodiments of the forces of nature, ancestors and monsters at the same time. But so far the man was not the master, he was just watching. His spears had not yet touched the fur of the titans. Winter lasted almost half of the year. When the thaw came, the plains changed. Water flowed down the hollows, and the earth breathed steam. The mammoths moved on, leaving muddy footprints that quickly filled with water. The young ones grew, their fur became thicker. They learned from their elders how to look for food, how to distinguish smells, how to listen to the earth. They could feel the storms coming. The day before the snowstorm, the herd stopped, huddled in a tight circle. The mammoths stood waiting for the wind to weaken. Their bodies formed a living wall, in the centre of which the babies were hiding. Sometimes the storm lasted for days, but no one left. Only after the wind had died down would the matriarch take the first step forward, and the whole herd would move again. So the years, decades, and centuries passed. Mammoth's life was slow but steady, like the flow of glaciers. In another part of the continent, where the land was drier and the sky higher, another family of mammoths descended to the valley. There, among the icy bushes, lay the tracks of other giants' woolly rhinoceroses. They were loners, as unsociable as winter itself. Sometimes the paths crossed. Mammoths shunned these heavy creatures, respecting their strength. The rhino didn't attack for no reason, but there was a hidden power in its movements, heavy as an ice block. In this valley, life was in full swing despite the cold. Birds were digging in the snow, rodents were digging holes, wolves were watching from afar. Everything was part of a balance where even death had its own rhythm. Sometimes a predator descended on the plain, which even the saber-toothed ones were afraid of. A short-faced giant bear with a chest as wide as a wall and paws capable of turning over a mammoth carcass. He lived alone, wandering the plains, guided by the smell of carrion. His fur was dark, almost black, and glistened under the moonlight. When he found the remains, no one dared to approach. Even the wolves were retreating. He growled, low and hollow, as if the earth itself were echoing. This was how nature maintained its balance. Predators cleared the land, herbivores fed the icy pastures, and life flowed restlessly. In the spring, when the ice was melting, mammoths reached the southern plains. The snow was soft there, the ground was wet, and the grass had broken through earlier. The herd was resting, the kids were playing, waving their trunks, throwing clods of mud at each other. The world seemed eternal. But beyond the horizon, on the distant slopes, man was already learning to survive. He watched the migrations, understood where the herd would pass, how the wind carried the smell when the ice broke underfoot. He hadn't rushed into battle yet, but he was already studying the enemy. Soon, a person will learn to hunt not the weak, but the great. But for now, it's only morning. And this morning, the giants still rule. Sometimes at dawn, when the fog descends on the plain, you could see a herd crossing the horizon. Silhouettes, majestic, calm, disappearing in the grey light. Every step is a memory. Each trace is evidence of an era when life was gigantic and death infinitely distant. Their bones will remain in the ground, and time will remember their breath. When a person comes and lights bonfires, he will find these bones and realize that there were titans before him. This is how the story of the end and the beginning begins. Before the dawn of the people, mammoths are the last kings of the ice pastures. The wind is blowing over the plain again. The earth is as hard as bone. The air is dry. It smells of frost and iron. On the northern plateaus, where the sun barely rises above the horizon, there lives a creature in whose body the very stability of the continent is embodied. It does not seek movement. It is not afraid of loneliness. His life is a struggle with time, with the storm and with the predator that never sleeps. This woolly rhinoceros is a beast born of cold and patience. He walks slowly, treading on the frozen ground as if on centuries-old ice. His steps are heavy but measured, like the beating of the heart of the world. The body is covered with thick, matted hair the colour of ash and dry grass. Beneath it is the skin, rough and wrinkled, like ancient bark. 2 horns, short and wide, are curved forward. The front one is long, almost sharp, and the rear one is smaller and auxiliary. When the sun is reflected in their smooth surfaces, it seems as if the beast is carrying 2 fragments of eternal ice. The woolly rhinoceros knows no rush. He's not building herds, he's not looking for company. His loneliness is not a weakness, but a way of survival. He moves alone, guided by instinct and the memory of the smells that the wind carries. His world is a constant resistance. He stops at the foot of the hill where the dry grass peeks out of the snow. He has no trunk, but his lips are long and tenacious. He tears the bunches, chews slowly, grinding them together with clods of earth. His breath is steaming, as if from the mouth of a volcano. Every morning he greets like this, alone, in the cold and the wind. The snow falls on his back, slowly melts under the warmth of his body, turning into an ice crust. He shakes himself off, shedding her like an armour. Sometimes others flash by on the horizon, the same, slow, massive ones. They rarely get close to each other. It is only in spring, when the air warms and the ground thaws, that males meet. Then the air is filled with a low, long-drawn roar, in which rage and ancient power can be heard. They converge slowly, like glaciers moving. The horns collide loudly and heavily. The earth is shaking. The snow flies up in clouds. The wind carries the smell of blood. The fight lasts for minutes, but it seems like forever. The winner doesn't kill. He just pushes the enemy away, forcing them to retreat. Then they both disperse, taking with them the traces of the battle. Scars, broken hairs of wool, drops of blood that freeze in the wind. This is how a new power over the valley is born. Not eternal, but for these creatures everything is measured not in days but in cycles of winters and thaws. In the distance, among the icy bushes, movement flickers. Wolves. There aren't many of them, 4 or 5, hungry, wary. They're on the trail, but they know the cost of a mistake. For them, a rhino is not a prey, but a risk. They follow at a distance, sniffing out blood in the snow after a fight. Sometimes they creep closer, then retreat. The woolly rhinoceros stops, turns around. His eyes are small but attentive. He hears footsteps through the wind, feels the vibration of the earth. He turns his head sharply, and his horn cuts the air with a dull whistle. The wolves bounce back. They don't dare. Their strategy is to wait. When the storm hits, when the beast gets tired, then they will come closer. The storm starts suddenly. Fine, sharp snow is falling from the sky like sand. The wind roars, spinning spirals. The air thickens, becomes white and silent. The rhino crouches to the ground, lowers his head, shielding his eyes. His fur sways, snow accumulates on his back, turning into protection. He stands there for hours until the whirlwind subsides. The wind gradually subsides, the sky brightens. There are snowdrifts underfoot, dense and crunchy. He comes out of his stasis, shakes his head, and takes a deep breath. Steam escapes from the nostrils. There is grass under the snow. He digs it with his front horn like a plough, pushing the snow aside. Its horn is bent downwards for just that, for digging. Every movement is precise, economical, and effortless. He finds tufts of coarse vegetation, chews slowly. Life goes on, even at -40. In spring, rivers overflow their banks. A woolly rhinoceros stands on a hill looking down. The water carries ice fragments, rustles, glitters under the sun. He doesn't like water, but he knows its laws. He waits until the flow subsides, then crosses, stepping heavily, breaking the ice which cracks under his feet. Every step reverberates through the body like a drum beat. There is a smell of life on the opposite shore. There are greenery, soft and fresh. He goes ashore, shakes himself up. Drops of water remain on the skin, sparkling under the sun. It's a rare time of abundance, and even loneliness seems softer. Sometimes other mammoth giants appear in his world, moving slowly across the distant plains. They're not enemies, but they're not friends either. Everyone follows their own path. When the herd approaches, the rhino moves away, preferring not to cross paths. But he feels them. hears the low roar as the ground shakes with their footsteps, and maybe something similar to respect is born in his heart, an ancient feeling for those who, like him, carry the burden of survival. The night on the plain is long, the moon is pale as a bone, the wind brings the smell of carrion. In the distance, a short-faced bear rips open a carcass. The woolly rhinoceros senses this but does not approach. He doesn't need to take any chances. It goes to the hills, where the snow is denser, where you can find bark on frozen bushes. His teeth can even handle wood. He slowly chews the bark, standing motionless while the moon floats across the sky. Every piece of food is a victory. So the night passes, and dawn comes without a sound. Sometimes he finds footprints in the snow-strange small ones with straight lines and short impressions. People. He doesn't know what that means. His brain is incapable of fearing the future. But something about those footprints makes him wary. The smell is foreign, pungent with smoke and ash. People are already nearby. There are still a few of them. They are careful. They don't hunt rhinos often. It's too dangerous. But when hunger is stronger than fear, they build traps. Deep pits covered with branches, stone spears with jagged edges. Sometimes one of the giants falls into such a pit, and then the earth hears his cry, low, desperate, echoing between the hills. It's rare, but such moments are the beginning of the end. The woolly rhinoceros is moving south. Winter is coming again. The air is heavier, the sky is lower. He walks along the river, which will soon freeze over. Bones lie along the shores, bleached by the wind. Some of them are his relatives. He has no memory, but his instinct tells him that death is always near. He stops, raises his head, and inhales. The smell of snow, the smell of eternity. He's moving on. Years pass, and the climate changes. The wind is getting softer, the snow is getting wetter, and the grass is getting taller. But for the woolly rhinoceros, this is not a blessing. His body is made for the cold. Warm winds bring rot, disease, and mud where his hooves get stuck. Insects swarm around the eyes. He hits his head to shake them off, but every year there are more of them. New animals are appearing in the steppes, fast, light-footed ones that did not exist before. The world is changing. Their steps are light, and their gaze is cautious. The woolly rhinoceros is still going its own way, but this path is getting narrower. His world is shrinking. The last season arrives without warning. The storm increases suddenly, and the cold returns for a short time. It snows for days, covering everything. The rhinoceros stands alone in the midst of the white silence. He's breathing heavily. His fur is matted, and his horn is half broken off. He's old. He's digging in the snow, but there's nothing underneath. The earth is frozen to the very heart. He takes a step, then another. The snow settles under his weight, crunching. He stops. Steam comes out of his nostrils, and for a moment it seems as if the earth itself exhales along with him. He lies down slowly as the sun sinks below the horizon. The world is quieting down. When the storm leaves, his body is covered with snow. Only the tip of the horn is visible on the surface, a black footprint on a white field. That's how one of the last titans disappears. Centuries pass. The man comes again, no longer a hunter, but an explorer. He finds a body under the ice, untouched by time. There is still frost in the wool. The frozen winter is in my eyes, and a person, looking at him, feels the shadow of a bygone era moving under his feet, a time when animals were like mountains, but man was not yet the peak. The heavy breathing of the earth has long since subsided, but its echoes can be heard in every gust of wind over the northern plain. Dusk falls on the plain, and all life freezes. The light dissipates in the frosty air, turning into a haze. The birds perch on the branches, the mammoths huddle closer. The wolves go to the slopes, and only one sound does not disappear. A quiet, almost inaudible breathing from behind a boulder. Saber-tooth is waiting in the dark. His body is the epitome of silence. Not a single muscle trembles, not a single hair rustles. He merges with the earth. His fur is the colour of grey grass. His eyes are full of amber light. His fangs, long and narrow, shine as he opens his mouth to breathe in the cold air. They are his gift and his curse, an instant killing weapon, and a weight that prevents him from feeding if the prey is not killed immediately. He's waiting. For hours, sometimes for days. He knows that strength is not in speed, but in patience. A herd is slowly moving in front of him. Ancient horses, dense, short-legged, woolly. Their breath steams, their footsteps thud on the frozen ground. They don't know that death lies nearby, almost in the shadow. The predator crouches to the ground, the muscles under the skin trembling with tension. The wind is changing. Now it's blowing in the back. He had to act now, or the smell would betray him. In an instant, an explosion. He flies out of the ambush like lightning, rushes to the nearest victim. His paws strike, his claws dig in, his body collides with his prey with a dull crack. The fangs enter the flesh at the base of the neck, where an artery runs. Warm blood splashes on the snow. The predator retreats, waits. The victim falls, wheezes, struggles, then freezes. Silence returns. He's not in a hurry to eat. He looks round and knows that the smell of blood will attract others. Wolves, bears, even birds are on their way. He must get enough quickly before those who are stronger in numbers come. Saber-tooth is a hunter of solitude, but not always. Sometimes he shares his prey with others, with the female, with the young. Scientists who find his bones millennia later will notice strange traces, healed fractures, traces of old wounds, traces of care. These predators could help their own. They weren't a pack like wolves, but they weren't completely alone either. Sometimes the night brought them together briefly, but enough to keep life going. The day on the plain is bright, almost dazzling. The predator lies in the shadow of a rock, breathing heavily. The sun warms his fur and the light plays on his fangs. He's not built for heat. His body is for the cold, for the thick air, for winter hunting. When summer comes, he rests more, moves less. At this time he lives in expectation of the night, the cold, the return of the wind. Sometimes scavengers approach him, foxes, wolves, birds. He doesn't growl, he just raises his head, and that's enough. His eyes are like two coals. Even a bear, if it gets close, will sense the danger. Saber-tooth is not bulky, but his strength lies in his speed and precision. He doesn't fight for long, he kills with one move. Winter is coming back. It's been snowing for weeks, and the plain has become a white ocean. Hunting is more difficult now. The predator follows the tracks of wolves, mammoths, and humans. He can smell blood, but he often arrives too late. The carcasses have already been butchered, with tufts of fur sticking out from the bones. He grumbles, walks away, lies down in the snow. Sometimes he goes after a pack of wolves, knowing that their hunting may bring him a chance. When the wolves kill, he waits until they are satisfied, then comes up. They growl and rush, but one of his blows with his paw breaks his jaw. The other knocks him down. He doesn't kill everyone, he just drives them away. He eats quickly, grabbing chunks, feeling the cold air mix with the smell of blood. His body requires a lot of energy, and food is scarce. He lives on the edge. Some days, a storm covers the sky. The wind is howling. The snow is spinning in spirals. A predator takes cover under a fallen tree. He's curled up in a ball, breathing slowly. There are ice crystals on his fur. The eyelids droop. He does not sleep, but he dreams. Not like humans, but instinctive images. Running, prey, blood, ice. Dreams of an ancient instinct. When the storm subsides, he goes out. The snow is glistening, the sun is low like old gold. There are no traces, everything is swept away. The world has become a blank slate. He's coming again. His paws are wide and do not fall through. There's frost on his moustache and steel in his eyes. He lives because he can't do anything else. The smells change in spring. The air becomes humid, and the wind brings the smell of flowering bushes, rotting and new life. Saber-tooth doesn't like spring. It brings noise. The birds are screaming. The water is flowing. The herds are moving faster. He becomes more careful, hides deeper. Sometimes he watches people. They build camps at the foot of the hills, make fires, roast meat. He sees their light from afar, a living flame alien to the world of ice. He doesn't understand them, but he feels threatened. The smell of smoke and stones soaked in blood reminds a predator of death. He stays away, although sometimes at night he comes closer. He smells the bones left after the feast. He carefully pulls out a piece, hides. People don't see him, but sometimes they feel his gaze. Ancient, lingering, invisible. In the mountains to the south his relatives live. Smaller, but just as dangerous. They hunt in narrow gorges where every step echoes. Their fangs are shorter, their bodies are lighter, but they have the same silence. The world of Saber-tooth is diverse but united by one idea, the power of the moment. They don't chase for long. They are waiting for the world to bring its prey to them. Time is passing. The climate is changing. It's getting warmer every year. The grass is crowding out the snow, and the forests are creeping north. This is a disaster for the saber-tooth. Their prey is leaving, the ice is melting, and there are fewer shelters. They are becoming a rarity, a legend. The young die earlier, the old are left without food. The predator, once the king of the night, is now forced to feed on carrion. He's losing muscles, his fangs are wearing off. He lives longer than he should, but not for the sake of life. For the sake of the memory of the body, for the sake of movement, which is sewn into the blood. One day he finds a valley where a herd of bison is resting by a river. He looks from afar. My heart is beating slowly but steadily. He descends, quietly, step by step, wind in the face. Everything is perfect. He rushes, lightning fast, but the snow has melted, the paws are stuck. The blow does not reach the target. The bison turns around, horns cutting into its chest. The predator falls, tears the air with its paws, tries to rise. The blood is flowing, thick, dark. He doesn't scream, he's breathing. The world is buzzing around, bird cries, footsteps, ice cracking. He lies there and his eyes look up at the sky where birds are flying, small, lively, indifferent. He breathes for a long time until the cold returns. The snow falls again, slowly covering the body. This is how the night of the ancient hunters ends. Millennia pass. People find bones, huge jaws, fangs like daggers. They don't believe that such animals could exist. But then they find footprints on the rocks, images on the walls of caves, lines carved by a hand that remembered the fear of the shadow. Saber-tooth lives in these lines, in memory, in the ancient fear that man carries even now. The shadow of the ambush remained in us. When night falls and the fire goes out, the memory of those eyes that saw us long before we learned to see the world still stirs in the depths of consciousness. The northern sun is slowly rising above the horizon, turning the icy hills into a dull gold. The air is still, the cold is clear as glass. He walks alone across the plain, strewn with the tracks of wolves and hooves. His footsteps are heavy and slow, but the ground seems to be listening to them. A short-faced bear. One of the last lords of this world who breathes cold and blood. His silhouette is majestic and alien to the usual proportions. The body is elongated, the chest is wide, the muzzle is short and massive, the eyes are deep set. When he stands up on his hind legs, his height exceeds 2 people. The muscles under the thick brown-grey fur roll like waves under ice. He's not just a beast, he's the embodiment of density and strength, gathered by nature into one point. You can smell it from hundreds of paces away. He smells of grease, old moss, blood, and snow. When he passes by, even the wolves hide. They know that this beast does not divide its prey. He is not a hunter in the usual sense. He goes to a place where death has already been. He can smell carrion from miles away. It doesn't matter to him who killed saber-tooth, wolves, humans, or frost. Everything that died belongs to him, but sometimes he hunts. Not because he has to, but because he can. If a herd of reindeer crosses the path, if the wind brings the smell of blood, his body remembers an ancient instinct, the instantaneous force of a blow. He walks without haste. His paws leave wide footprints similar to the prints of stone slabs. He's walking against the wind, and his breath is steaming. The world in front of him is quiet, as if waiting for something. There is a carcass on the plain, the remains of a mammoth. Bones are sticking out of the ground, crows are circling around. The tracks of the wolves are fresh, and the snow around them is covered with patches of fur. He comes closer, slowly, not hurrying. The wolves see him and move away, mute. No argument. He lowers his head, inhales the scent. His nose, huge and sensitive, distinguishes hundreds of shades. Frozen meat, blood, the trail of a man, the trail of an animal. He growls softly, hollowly, deeply. This sound resembles the movement of a mountain. He eats slowly. His teeth grind through tendons and bones. With each bite it becomes quieter, calmer, as if it absorbs the silence itself along with the meat. Bones crack, crows fly away, and only the wind rustles between his shoulder blades. The day passes. He lies down next to the remains of the carcass without leaving. He doesn't need much, but he doesn't share. The wolves come back and sit nearby. They're waiting. He's not paying attention. His eyes are half closed and his breathing is steady. When one wolf dares to come closer, the bear only raises its head slightly. The wolf freezes, takes a step back. It ends without a sound. When the sun sets, the air becomes transparent again. There's a herd on the horizon. Old bison walking along the river. He looks. He doesn't need to attack. He knows that one of them will weaken soon anyway. He's waiting. Sometimes he follows the herds for weeks. He's not in a hurry. He follows, sleeps during the day, moves at night. He knows that death is always near. She is his ally, his prey, his shadow. It gets slower in winter. The fat under the skin thickens, the coat darkens. He digs a hole under the hillside where the snow is blown away by the wind. Inside there are dry branches, wool, and the smell of earth. He lies down and the darkness covers him. The world freezes around me. He does not sleep completely. His body sinks into a half doze. Sometimes he raises his head, draws in air. He feels everything: snow, animals, smells, hunger. He lives on the edge between sleep and wakefulness. In his dreams there are icy plains, shadows of predators, the light of the northern stars. He sees how the world is changing, although he doesn't know the words for it. In the spring, he comes out of his lair, thin but alive. The snow is melting, and there are bones, moss, and old footprints under it. He walks along the stream, drinks water, then lies down on a rock, warms up. The wind brings the smell of death. He gets up and walks. He finds the remains of saber-tooth. The bones are torn, the fur is in shreds. He walks around, sniffing the air. The smell is old and stale. He doesn't eat. He just sits there for a while, then leaves. He is alone, and this world is emptying with him. There is human smoke in the distance. He feels it, but he doesn't get any closer. He knows there's a smell of fire and stone. People aren't scary, but they're unpleasant. They smell different. Not animals, not earth. Their scent doesn't belong to the world he knows. Sometimes at night he hears their voices. They're singing, shouting, laughing. These sounds disturb him. He goes further, to a place where there is no light, where there is only the moon and the wind. In summer it reaches the northern hills. There are fewer people there, but also less prey. He's living with hunger. Sometimes he digs up old bones. Sometimes he catches fish with his paw. Sometimes he just lies there, looking into the distance where glaciers shine. One day he meets another bear, a huge, dark, scarred one. They converge on the plain. Both rise on their hind legs. The air thickens. The first one growls, the second one answers. Their bodies collide with a thud. Dust, tufts of fur, a roar. The fight is short, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Everyone knows that a wound is death. They disperse without turning around, and again, loneliness. Over the years, his pace becomes slower, and his coat turns grey. He knows the scent of every animal, every plant, every wind. He knows where the wolves are hiding, where the deer are sleeping, where the old trees are falling. For him, the world is a network of smells and sounds. He sees not with his eyes, but with his breath. He feels that something has changed. The air has become warmer, the snow melts earlier, and the birds return faster. He doesn't understand the reasons, but he knows it's bad. The world that nourished him is dissolving. The herds are leaving, the rivers are getting shallow, and the ice is moving north. He's following him as long as he can. In autumn, he finds a place where carcasses always used to be. There's grass there now. He lies down, doesn't move. The sun is setting, the shadows are lengthening. The wind carries the smell of the distant sea. He closes his eyes. Maybe he's falling asleep. Maybe he's just listening to the world being erased from his memory. The wind passes through his fur, and the snow slowly falls on his back. It becomes an immobile part of the earth. Thousands of years later, people will find his bones. They will wonder why such power has disappeared. They will measure his fangs, compare him with the bears of his time, and look for an explanation. But they won't find one thing: the silence in which he lived. That silent force that was part of a world where everything existed for the sake of balance. The short-faced bear was not evil and was not good. He was the law of cold. Now this law has been violated, and that's why his world didn't come back. Dawn over the icy plain comes without a sound. The sun is rising, turning the snow to cold silver. The air is still, Only the breath of the pack swirls in the morning mist. 10 silhouettes stretching in a chain move along the trail, slowly, without breaking the rhythm. These are wolves, descendants of the north wind. Their path is the road of patience, trail after trail, breath after breath. Their fur is thick, double, light in some, dark grey in others. They differ in strength, but not in purpose. The flock moves as a single body, like a thought in which there are no words. Everyone knows their place. Everyone feels the rhythm of others. The leader is ahead, an old man with a scar on his face, with eyes reflecting snow. He doesn't run first out of a thirst for power. He goes first because he knows how to feel the icy air better than others. Behind him are the females, followed by the young, quiet, hungry, attentive. There are guards at the back, those who keep an eye on the shadow. Their goal today is a herd of deer. The herd moves along the river cautiously but without fear. The wolves have been following for the 3rd day now. The wind changed. It carries the smell of hooves, wool, and fear. The pack accelerates. The movement becomes smooth. Waves of grey bodies sway across the plain. They don't run fast. They save their breath. They know that time is their ally. They are approaching in the evening. The herd is standing by the water. Deer smell predators, raise their heads, trample snow, listen. But there are no wolves in sight. They disappeared into the folds of the earth, into the low bushes, into the white light. The first throw is not an attack, but a test. A young wolf flies out of hiding, runs to the edge of the herd, raises the alarm. The deer are running away. At this moment the old leader is watching. Where is the weak spot? Who is lagging behind? Everything else is noise. A moment later the pack disappears. She's not stalking right now. It was a reconnaissance mission. They're waiting for the night. Night is their time. When the world quiets down, when the cold becomes denser, wolves become part of the darkness. They don't run. They flow on the ground. Their eyes reflect the stars, their breath floats in the dark. The pack splits up. 1 leaves on the left, 2 go around on the right, 3 stay behind. The leader walks in the centre. The deer, a young male, has already weakened. His step is uneven. Wolves feel it as they feel the approach of winter. When the wind subsides, running begins. Not a jerk, not a chaos, but a rhythm. Smooth, measured, persistent. They don't rush at the victim. They walk side by side, a little behind, without letting you catch your breath. The deer is seized with fear. He's speeding up, and so are they. He slows down, they get closer. It lasts an hour, 2 hours, a night. Then there was a mistake. He stumbles. The leader jumps. Fangs dig into the neck. The body falls. The others are suitable. No one is in a hurry. Everyone gets their share, their piece. No greed, no chaos, just the law. After hunting, there is silence. They lie around, breathing evenly. Their bodies are warm to the snow. The old leader sits to the side, looking north. There's ice, wind, and no man's land. He does not know that thousands of years later, people with dogs, their descendants, will pass through these plains. He's just listening. During the day, the flock moves towards the hills. Along the way, they find traces of other predators. Saber-toothed, bears, humans. They avoid it. Wolves don't fight unless they have to. They don't live for heroism, but for continuation. Sometimes one wolf goes away, old, tired, sick. He falls behind, lies down by a tree. The pack moves on. He doesn't howl, he doesn't call. This is the law, the loneliness of death. But at night they can still smell it on the wind. And they walk on, as if they carry his shadow with them. Puppies are growing up among them. They don't learn how to hunt, but how to pay attention. First they play in the snow, then they listen to their elders, then they go on a real hunt. Their first throw is always a failure, but that's how they become part of the common breath. Not as individuals, but as members of a pack. When winter comes, the pack gets closer to each other. They sleep together, share warmth. If there is little food, the older ones are inferior to the younger ones. This is not pity, but calculation. The young must survive. Sometimes they meet other wolves. 2 packs converge on the plain, at a distance of several dozen steps. The air is ringing. There is no immediate attack, just postures, growling, and a look. Everyone understands the cost of a wound. Sometimes everything is decided by one step, one movement of the tail. Sometimes it's a fight, short, fast, without mercy, but also without hate. After that, there was blood on the snow, paw prints, and silence. The deer wolves, their large cousins from the south, live differently. They are more powerful, slower, with jaws capable of breaking bone. They hunt bison, horses, and sometimes humans. They rely less on running, more on strength. But the essence is the same: the flock, the order, the breathing of the common body. And when the climate changes, that's what saves the Arctic wolves. The deer wolves disappear. Wolves don't. They leave after the cold, change their food, change their lands, but they don't lose touch. Their strength is not in the body, but in the rhythm. Sometimes wolves follow the trail of humans, not for the sake of hunting, but for the sake of curiosity. They can smell smoke, bones, and blood. They come closer at night, see the light of campfires, hear voices. People are singing. The wolves are listening. Some of them don't run away even when people notice them. They watch for a long time in silence. And between the two worlds of the beast and man, there is not fear but curiosity. Later, through the generations, this curious look will change everything. One of the puppies won't run away. He will stay. That's how the story begins, which we'll call domestication. But it's still a glacial night. Wolves walk across the plain, their breath melting into the mist. They don't know the future. They don't need it. The wind, the smell, the trail are enough for them. They are the last true hunters of this world, where strength lies not in solitude but in harmony. Their running is the breath of the planet. Their spear is the voice of ancient ice. When darkness descends and everything freezes, only this sound fills the void, a call that remembers all living things. In distant lands where the glacial cold did not reach the plains, the world lived with a different breath. Here, in the land of soft winds and humid twilight, where the earth breathed steam and the air trembled with warmth, order was still preserved, the ancient sun of which did not know the white wastelands. Late Pleistocene South America was a continent of giants, slow, confident, heavy, whose movements resembled the breathing of the earth itself. They lived in harmony with the roar of the rains, with the rustle of leaves, with thunder stretching far beyond the horizon. There were no packs or hordes here, but single titans, each of whom carried a century of history. The soils, saturated with moisture, covered vast savannas interspersed with forests of low palms and tree ferns. The thick air smelled of dampness, decay, and life at the same time. Fog swirled over the marshes, reflecting the sun, dim but hot. In this viscous green silence lived creatures whose size and slowness were akin to a myth, not in a hurry, not afraid, not expecting a threat. Their bodies were the epitome of stability, a world where time passed not for years, but for epochs. The first of these was Megatherium, a giant ground sloth, a creature whose gravity exceeded all conventional concepts of movement. He rose on his hind legs like a slow spirit of the forest, reaching up, breaking the branches of ancient trees. His claws, long, curved, almost half a metre long, were not meant for killing but for strength. They clung to the trunks, tore the bark and tore off the leaves. His fur, thick and grey, soaked up the moisture of the night, and his breathing could be heard dozens of paces away. Slow, hollow, like the sigh of a rock. Megatherium was as lonely as a mountain. He didn't need a pack, and he didn't know any enemies, except for the rare saber-toothed predators that had been brought here across the dry bridges of the continents. But most of the time, he was surrounded only by silence. As he walked, the earth hummed. Every movement resembled a ritual. Every paw lift was an act of strength that did not require haste. He tore leaves, crushed branches, and broke young trees, but he did it without malice. He just existed as part of a cycle. During the day, he stood in the shade, lazily lowering his massive head, and at night he went out to the thickets illuminated by the moon. His eyes, small and dim, reflected the silver light. At dawn, his silhouette disappeared into the pear, as if he himself was part of the earth rising to the sky. Nearby in other valleys lived glyptodonts, the heavy armoured descendants of armadillos. Their shells resembled stone domes, and each movement made the sound of bone rubbing against bone. They were like living fortresses, capable of withstanding a saber-tooth strike or the claws of a jaguar. Their bodies moved low, slowly, but with confidence. There was no fear in their gait, just the habit of eternity. Sometimes glyptodonts gathered at watering holes, huge, motionless, built in a semicircle, like stone statues that nature itself had placed by the water. They drank without raising their heads, and the sun reflected off their shells, as if from ancient shields left by the warriors of the gods. On the plains, where the land was drier and rarer, toxodons lived, thick-skinned herbivores whose bodies resembled a mixture of a hippopotamus and a rhinoceros. Their mouths creaked as they chewed on roots and grass, and their breath raised clouds of steam. They roamed the swamps in herds, slowly but persistently. Their dilated nostrils caught the smell of rain from many kilometers away, and their ears sensitively caught the rustle of a predator in the bushes. But most of the time, the predators didn't take any chances. The toxodon's body was like a boulder. Its impact could break bones. He wasn't fast, but he was an immutable force. At night, screams could be heard over these plains, muffled low, like the echo of distant earthquakes. It was the Megatheriums that echoed with each other, with rare sounds like the wind breathing in the crevices of rocks. Their calls were lost in the fog, but they carried far away, as if they were calling someone from the depths of time. These screams were not a warning or a call, but rather a reminder that the world was still alive, that the ancient silence had not yet been destroyed. Sometimes a noise broke through this silence, rustling, growling, rapid footsteps. These were the terror birds, ancient predators, descendants of prehistoric feathered kings. They were as tall as a man, and their beaks were sharp and curved like sickles. They didn't fly, but they ran with amazing speed. Their eyes burned amber, and their screams cut through the air. They attacked swiftly, an instant beak strike to the neck, a prey drop, instant silence. But they also knew the boundaries. They did not go to the Megatheriums, bypass the toxodons, chose the young or the weak. So life went on slow, measured, full of rhythms unlike human ones. The world of the southern Titans was a world of gravity and peace, where every creature lived as if it were part of a huge mechanism of nature, working without haste. The rains came seasonally, the rivers overflowed and receded, the swamps soared in the morning, and in their reflections the world seemed eternal. But eternity cracked. At first it was barely audible. The climate was changing, the rainy season was getting shorter, the grass was drier, cracks began to form in the swamps, and herds of toxodons moved on, increasingly not returning. Glyptodonts lost their usual reservoirs and migrated in search of new ones. The Megatheriums remained, too big to leave, too old to change. And then others came, small, thin, with eyes full of light. They walked in pairs, then in families, then in groups. Their hands held spears, their steps were light, their breaths short. They were moving fast, with purpose. People came into this world like a silent storm, not destroying everything at once, but changing everything around them. They knew no fear of giants, only curiosity and hunger. First they took the carrion, then the young ones, then they started hunting. And for the first time in many centuries, the silence of the tropics was filled with sounds that were not known here. The rustle of footsteps, the whistling of spears, the crackle of fire. Megatherium stood by the water at night. His fur shivered in the wind, and his eyes reflected the glow of distant campfires. He did not understand their meaning, but he felt that something else had appeared in the world. In the morning, when the fog lifted, he walked on to where there were still trees, but the tracks behind him were already different. There were fewer of them every year. The shells of the glyptodonts emptied, and lines of fire burned into the bones of the Megatheriums. People rose, giants fell. The world of slowness and peace was giving way to a world of speed, fire, and thought. And yet, until the very end, in the depths of the forests under the stars, you could still hear their heavy breathing, as a reminder of the earth that once breathed with them. It was a long night before dawn. The glaciers were still breathing cold, but the sky was already brightening earlier and the sun was rising milder. People walked along the edge of the icy seas, along the valleys, where the tundra turned into the steppe. They were as silent as the wind. Their footsteps left shallow footprints, but each footprint was a step of a new age. They were not the first beings capable of thought, but they were the first to think about the future. Their eyes followed the sky, the moon, the stars, and the directions in which the herds disappeared. They saw in nature not just a background, but a meaning. Everything around them, the snow, the smoke of the campfire, the footprint on the ground, became a sign to them. The world they entered was old. Mammoths still walked in it, rhinoceroses roamed, saber-toothed prowled, and bears fought. But it was already felt that the balance was changing. The man was too light to break the ground with his feet, but persistent enough to change her breathing. Day by day he learned to understand. The wind told him where the herd was going. The snow showed fresh footprints. The stone kept the warmth of the sun, the wood, the smell of water. He became a part of the world not by force, but by attention. The tribes followed the migrations. They knew the paths of the mammoths and the crossings of the wolves. They knew where the valleys stretched, where the ice was weaker, where they could hide from the wind. Their bonfires burned under the stars and the smoke faded into eternity. Sometimes the bonfire burned for 3 days while the elder talked about animals that no one had seen before. Huge sloths, birds with eyes like the sun, armoured monsters whose bones were thicker than a stone. These stories preserved the memory of the time that was passing. In the afternoon, the hunters moved out of the parking lot. Their spears were crude but sharp. They walked low, hiding behind the hills, behind the shadow of the snow, behind the breath of the wind. They weren't moving fast, but they were moving with a concentration that no other beast had. They knew how to wait. They could stand still until dusk, until the beast turned its head. And at that moment, when the sounds of the world faded away, the man threw his spear straight as intent, cold as dawn. And when the beast fell, the earth trembled, not from rage, but from a new balance. People approached slowly with respect. The body wasn't just food, it was an exchange. They took meat, bones, wool, and left something in return: a stone, a branch, a symbol. It was an ancient contract between those who lived and those who gave life. Sometimes the hunt was unsuccessful. People returned empty-handed, tired, exhausted by the wind. But they were silent around the campfire, not in despair, but in expectation. They knew that tomorrow the sun would rise again, smoke would rise again, and footprints would appear on the snow again. In their world, patience was a strength, not a weakness. There was already a memory in these people. When the elders died, their bones were placed in the ground, facing east. Stones were placed above them, sometimes in a circle, sometimes in rows. These stones were not just markers, they became the first words of the world. The wind passed between them, whistling like the voice of the ancients, and the young listened, not trying to understand, but simply memorizing. Gradually the fire became their heart. Bonfires burned in caves, on plains, in snow hollows. He protected, warmed, and gave light. But the main thing was to unite them. The fire gathered people around itself, as the sun gathers planets around itself. In his light, they learned to look into each other's eyes. The world was changing. The snow melted earlier, the glaciers retreated, the valleys became wider, and the grasses grew taller. The animals migrated further and further north, and man followed them. He had no lands of his own, only a path. But with each step, this path became history. One night, when the sky was clear and the stars were hanging over the plain, one of the elders looked up and saw that the constellations had shifted. Since then, people have begun to memorize not only the earth, but also the sky. Every step across the plain became a step into eternity. Every glance upward became the beginning of time, so the man entered the dawn. Not as a conqueror, but as a witness. He didn't defeat the beasts, he outlived them. He didn't destroy the world, he changed its breathing. And everything that disappeared, mammoths, saber-toothed sloths, remained in his memory, in his bonfires, in his stones. And now, as the sun rose over Novaya Zemlya, a man stood on top of a hill, holding a spear in his hands, and looked into the distance. Valleys, forests, and rivers lay before him. Beyond them is the sea, and he knew that beyond there, in the unknown, a new era was beginning. An era in which he will not be a guest, but a host. The age of people. The sun no longer rose as it had before. It became taller, brighter, and with it the world became different. Glaciers that had held the earth's breath in a cold embrace for centuries began to melt. The rivers overflowed their banks, the swamps dried up, and the wind, which once carried snow, now brought dust. In the tundra, where herds of mammoths once walked, only shadows remained. Their footprints, when the wind blew them away with sand, turned into false trails leading nowhere. The earth, which had once hummed under the weight of thousands of feet, was now empty. Only sparse waves of grass swayed in the wind, as if remembering their step. The world of giants did not die from a single blow. He was leaving, as the evening light leaves, gradually, intermittently, with reflections of the past. Each creature disappeared in its own way. The mammoths drifted further north until they hit the ice and found their way back. Saber-toothed cats followed their flocks until hunger forced them to throw themselves even at their own shadows. Glyptodonts slowly died out on the shores where water no longer came. The Megatherium, the last of the southern titans, stood alone among the dry trees, not understanding why there was no more sound of rain. People followed them. First, just following them. Then, instead of them. They searched for the same pastures, the same springs, but found nothing, and in this emptiness a new one was born. Now hunting has become more than just a struggle for food. It has become a memory. People talked about animals that no longer existed. Their images appeared on the walls of caves, a mammoth painted with ochre, a saber-tooth bred with charcoal, a silhouette of a bear dissolved in the smoke of a torch. They weren't just drawings. They were prayers. Prayers to those who have left to make way for new ones. The earth has changed. Lakes appeared where there used to be ice. Where there were steppes, forests rose. Where mammoths had grazed, deer and bison now roamed. People began to build the first camps out of bone and stone. The first fences and the first borders appeared. They began to sew, not with their hands yet, but with their thoughts. At first, it was a simple feeling of returning. Here we were, here we will come again. But it was precisely from this feeling that the settled human heart was born. Those who remembered the old world still lived. Old men around campfires, hunters who remembered footprints in the snow, women holding mammoth fur as a memory of the sun. But their children no longer saw the giants. For them, stories about mammoths and saber-tooth were fairy tales, about mountains that walked and shadows that growled. That's how the memory disappeared. Not immediately, but inevitably. When the last mammoth disappeared, no one knew about it. There was no witness, there was no time, there was not even the concept of last. Just one day, heavy footsteps could not be heard over the coast. The grass straightened, the snow stopped breaking under the weight. The world exhaled and remained quieter. Man has entered this new world completely. He was no longer following. Now he chose the path himself. Fire became his companion. The word became his weapon, and memory became his home. He built houses from the bones of those who had left. From the skins, clothes, the horns are symbols, and so the ancient order dissolved into a new one, where everything was subordinated to hands and thoughts. Centuries have passed. The first fields appeared on the plains where ice rivers once flowed. Sheep grazed where the saber-toothed cats had lived. The mountains beneath which the mammoth's footsteps thundered became sacred. People, not remembering who they were burying in their songs, called those animals gods. Mammoth is the spirit of cold. The bear is the master of the forest. The birds that have disappeared are messengers of souls. So the myth continued what life had ended. But memory is a stubborn thing. Even after tens of thousands of years in the silence of the permafrost, beneath layers of earth, bones still retained their shape. When the man found them again, he remembered. Not with my mind, but with something deeper. In these tusks, in these skulls, in the paw prints, he saw himself. After all, he once looked at the world with eyes that were not afraid of its greatness. He had once lived in a world where heaven and earth breathed in unison. Now the world belonged only to him. The light rose over his houses, over his towns, over his campfires. But there was something cold in that light, an echo of the days when the sun rose above snow, above wool, above the breath of giants. Sometimes, in the morning silence, when the fog has not yet melted, you can hear a rumble, like distant footsteps. It's the wind playing in the grass, but there's an echo of the old world in that wind. The echo of those who came before us. Mammoths, saber-toothed bears, sloths. They all left at dawn, giving way to the one who now calls himself a man. And when a new day rises, when the sun touches the horizon, it seems as if everything returns for a moment. The world freezes, breathing stops, and a shadow can be seen against the golden sky. Vague, huge, slowly moving into the distance. It is a memory of those who were before the dawn of man, a memory that cannot die. The light rose above the plain, and the fog dispersed slowly, like the breathing of a beast after a dream. The earth was still breathing, but in a different way, the light emptiness left by the vanished giants. The man walked on this land carefully but firmly. His footsteps left footprints in the soft soil, footprints that would never be washed away by snow or rain of giant beasts again. He looked at the world through the eyes of a hunter, but not in search of prey, but in search of meaning. The grasses swayed around, and the trees creaked in the wind. Their whisper was a new language that man was gradually learning to respond to. The wind brought scents of water, earth, carrion, and sometimes traces of the remaining predators. He knew he wasn't alone today. On the northern plains, a rumble could be heard, barely discernible. The wolves were still moving in their packs, stealthy, cautious. Their breathing and footsteps almost blended with the sound of the wind. A man was watching them from afar. He was in no hurry to make contact. He understood that his strength so far lay in cunning, in the ability to wait, in being invisible while the world got used to its new master. Sometimes he found the bones of giants, mammoths, megatheriums, glyptodonts. Their remains lay in silence, like monuments to a former world. He touched them with his hands, explored their shapes, their power, trying to understand what the world they had left was like. Sometimes he left stones nearby, small traces of respect, sometimes marks showing the way to others. These bones became part of a new map, a new geography, by which a person learned to navigate. The first attempts at hunting were cautious. People learned to follow the behavior of the remaining animals, to read their movements, their breathing, and their reactions to the wind. He saw the toxodons slowly crossing the plains, the deer cautiously wandering by the watering holes, and the birds falling from the trees at the slightest rustle. He learned the world anew, not by force, but by attention. Sometimes he walked with a group, sometimes alone. The group learned to hunt collectively, combining actions, sharing food, and sharing knowledge about routes, predators, and the weather. The lessons of the elders were wordless: gestures, glances, hand movements. Everyone understood that a mistake could cost their lives. At the edge of the forests, he encountered a single saber-tooth for the first time. The predator was old and weak, its eyes barely glowing in the twilight. The man was watching. He realized that the force was on his side now. The giant was no longer moving as before, and old age and extinction had made him vulnerable. He didn't attack right away. He waited, studied, chose the moment. And at that moment, for the first time, he felt that the world had changed forever. Through forests and valleys, man began to build the first shelters, not at home, but places where you can wait out the night, hide from the wind, from predators. He collected branches, the skin of an abandoned animal, and stones. These shelters were his first bridge between freedom and security. Sometimes at night he listened to the forest. The wind blew through the trees, and the cries of wild birds could be heard, echoes of animals that had not yet disappeared. He wasn't afraid. He understood that there was a lesson in those sounds. He was learning patience. He studied time. Every day the man became more confident. He began to create the first tools not only for hunting, but also for protection, for cutting, for carrying food. His world was expanding. He understood that every trail, every footprint, every sound is part of a system in which he now plays a key role. So slowly, step by step, he became not only a hunter, but also a participant in the new order. The world of the Titans was gone, but their memory lived on, in their bones, in the earth, in the wind. People followed these footsteps, learned, survived, created their first roots, their first stories. The light rose above the plain again, and the earth gradually revealed itself to man. He walked on soft ground, leaving behind footprints that the wind had not yet been able to erase. The plain seemed empty, but it was deceptively quiet. The earth still held the memory of the giants, of the old migrations, of those who once owned this territory. And the person learned to read these footprints, their size, depth, direction, time when they were left. On this day he came to a small forest in the south. There were also ancient trees whose roots went deep into the ground, and the crowns blocked the light. The remaining predators lived among these trees: wild cats, packs of wolves, and individual large bears that still carry the power of past eras. The man moved cautiously, avoiding direct encounters, studying the routes where predators appeared most often. He understood that agility and strength no longer solved everything. Now those who watched, who understood habits, who knew how to wait, survived. Every move was calculated, every decision was weighed. And over time, people began to form new strategies. He no longer acted alone. The pack, the group, the tribe became his natural unit of power. The young hunters learned to observe. They followed the elders, repeated their gestures, memorized the signs of the presence of animals, fresh footprints, the smell, the creaking of branches. Sometimes the elders showed how to trap a predator using a pit, a net of branches or noise to distract attention. Each such action was part of a new knowledge that later became the basis for a future society. In the valley, they found traces of giant herbivores, still alive but rare. Giant sloths and toxodons kept to themselves or in small groups. The man realized that their numbers were dwindling, that they were cautious and unpredictable. He began to develop methods to get food without exposing himself to excessive danger. And in this process, for the first time, he felt power over nature, not to destroy it instantly, but to direct events and control the outcome. In the evening, the tribe gathered around the campfire. The lights were reflected in people's eyes, in the dark forest behind them, in the depths of the valleys. The elders showed the young people the bones of the giants left behind, explaining how they could be used to understand the strength and habits of the animals. These lessons were silent, without words. Gestures, glances, touching the ground, and bones conveyed knowledge. The night brought new sounds. The wolves were approaching the river where the tribe was collecting water. Their howls were not a threat, but a reminder that the world was still alive. The man watched them, recorded routes, learned to distinguish a lone wolf from a pack, noticed when the beast was looking for prey and when it was just going about its business. This was how a new rhythm was formed, the rhythm of coherence, coexistence, and control. Gradually, man began to change the territory. He built simple fences, moved parking lots closer to the water, and created safe routes for children and the weak. He studied plants, what was edible, what could be used as medicine. He became not only a hunter but also a primary landowner, slowly transforming the world around him. Sometimes he faced danger. A lone saber-tooth, a bear, and an aggressive pack of wolves were still a real threat. But now the man was acting like a strategist. He was setting traps, distracting attention, using natural shelters. Each surviving hunt provided new knowledge, new skills, new habits, which were then passed down through the generations. And so, day after day, man began to weave himself into the fabric of the earth, into the remaining footprints of the giants. He learned to hear footsteps in the wind, smells in the grass, signs in the clouds. He understood that his strength now lay not in speed or bestial might, but in attention, patience, and collective wisdom. The world of giants was gone, but the memory of it lived in the bones, in the earth, in the wind. The man understood. This memory is his bridge to understanding time, to exploring space, to creating a world in which he will become the main force. He followed the trails left by the megafauna, and at every step he learned to live in a world that he both respected and changed. The fog lifted only by noon. Light filtered through the valleys and lowlands, softly touching the stones, grasses, and traces of the old world. The earth breathed softly, and every sound was a signal to those who had learned to listen. A man walked on this earth, studying it carefully. His steps were cautious but confident. He was no longer alone. The group, united by common goals, moved behind him, following the elders who kept knowledge of beasts, plants, water, and hidden traps. Every morning began with observation. The sun was just beginning to rise when the elders pointed out the footprints. They showed young hunters how to distinguish fresh wolf prints from boar or deer tracks, how to determine the size of an animal by the depth of a hole in the ground, and how to understand the direction of movement by the angle of the crushed grass. This knowledge was transmitted tacitly, through gestures, glances, and touches to the ground. In the north, where the snow had not yet completely melted, the remaining bears and solitary saber-toothed cats continued to hide in forests and ravines. A person has learned to observe them from afar, noting routes, memorizing habits, anticipating behavior. He knew that at any moment a predator could attack, and therefore his survival depended on patience, caution, and mutual trust in the group. Groups of people began to develop the first joint hunting strategies. Together, they drove animals to traps or into natural traps, used distracting movements, noise or smoke to confuse the predator, and then acted collectively. Spears, previously used only individually, now acted as an extension of the community's arm. Every prey, be it deer, wild boar, or a rare herbivorous giant, was not just food. It became a learning tool, a symbol of mutual trust and discipline. The young hunters learned patience. They could stand motionless for hours, peering into the forest, listening to the rustle of grass, watching the breathing of animals. Sometimes the night passed without visible action, only the sounds of the forest, the breathing of the group, the distant howling of the wolves. But every day of such observation strengthened the skills, allowing a person to gradually turn into a master of survival. Man also began to study plants and water. He memorized where edible grass grows, where roots can be found, which berries are safe, which can heal pain, and which can poison. He observed birds, their behavior and migrations, and learned to predict the weather and seasonal changes. Gradually, his understanding of the world around him ceased to be only instinctive. It became conscious, systematic, forming a new connection with the earth, a connection that even the most ancient hunters had not had before that moment. Over time, the first permanent parking lots appeared. People chose places close to the water with natural shelters, the opportunity to observe the territory and protection from predators. The parking lots were reinforced with stones and branches, sometimes supplemented with bone structures, the remains of large animals that served as walls or platforms. These first architectural solutions were simple but effective. They created a space of security and centralized interaction. In the silence of the night when the bonfires were lit, the elders told stories about the giants, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, glyptodonts, megatheriums. Their images appeared on cave walls and stone cliffs. These stories were not fairy tales. They were lessons, monuments, and behavioral pointers that combined the memory of a former world with practical knowledge for survival. The young people watched these drawings and imitated the gestures of the elders, learned how to copy hunting movements, how to hold a spear correctly, how to disguise themselves, and whisper to each other through signs to keep quiet. Every drawing, every line on the stone, every fingerprint on the bone became part of an educational system that civilization did not yet have. Gradually, man began to expand his territories. He went beyond the forests, explored the plains, explored the valleys and slopes. With each new route, he created new maps, not drawn, but in memory. He memorized where the water was, where the grass was, where the bones of the giants were, where the predators were. These maps were invisible but accurate, forming the mental geography necessary for survival and hunting. Solitary predators such as bears, saber-toothed cats and wolves were sometimes found in the new territories. A person learned to anticipate their behavior. He noticed where they rested, where they hunted, where they hid. He understood that power now lay not in direct confrontation, but in strategy, to lure, distract, surround, and wait for the right moment. Collective hunting became the main tool. Sometimes the hunt ended in failure. The young and inexperienced could make a mistake. The tribe returned empty-handed, but the knowledge was never lost. The elders explained the mistakes, showed what needed to be fixed, and everyone returned the next morning more attentive, more patient. This was how discipline and collective responsibility were formed, traits that will become the foundation of future communities. Over the years, man began experimenting with fire, not just bonfires for warmth and protection, but ways to manage the territory. He burned out thickets to attract animals to open pastures, used smoke to scare away predators, and created fences made of bones and stones. Fire has become a tool of control, a strategic resource that helps overcome the limitations of the environment. With the advent of permanent camps, the first rituals appeared. People celebrated seasonal migrations, memorable dates for extinct giants, successful hunts, and dangerous encounters with predators. These rituals were quiet, without words, but with deep meaning. They united the tribe, passed on knowledge, and strengthened social ties. Every bonfire, every bone, every drawing was part of a common story that connected people to the earth and its inhabitants. Gradually, a social hierarchy was formed in these tribes. Elders with knowledge of roots, predators, and plants became the leaders. They pointed out migration routes, organized hunting, and taught young people. The young people studied, observed, and completed tasks. This is how the first organization of the society was formed, a collective based on knowledge, experience, and mutual trust. With climate change and the disappearance of large herbivores, humans began to change the ecosystem. He did not destroy it instantly, but gradually affected the balance. Herbivores decreased in numbers, predators migrated, and humans learned to use new resources: plants, small animals, and fish. They developed strategies to maintain the stability of their camps, hunt rationally, and minimize risks. The world was gradually changing. The Earth, previously dominated by giants, was now dominated by reason. But the man learned to respect her strength, her rhythm. He observed the water cycle, the migrations of birds, and the behavior of the remaining animals. He realized that survival is not only in strength, but also in understanding the world, in harmony with it. Every year the knowledge accumulated. The young became hunters, the hunters became elders, the elders became keepers of memory. Each generation contributed to the understanding, formed maps of the territory, survival strategies, methods of interaction with nature and with predators. So step by step, a person turned from an observer into a participant in the new order. He was no longer just following the disappearing megafauna, he created new rules, new connections, new ways. The world of giants remained in memory and bones, but now it served as a reference point for human civilization, for collective survival, for the formation of the first knowledge systems covering nature, animals, and man himself. The light rose from the plains, colouring the grasses and forests with a soft golden glow. The tribe followed the old trails left by the giants, now a part of their memory. The earth was still breathing the traces of the vanished titans, but man was already beginning to feel it as his own. Every step, every glance over the horizon became both an exploration and an act of ownership. In the valley of the river, where the water flowed quietly but surely, the tribe decided to stop. There were natural shelters here, low cliffs, thickets of bushes, convenient places for bonfires. The elders looked around the area. There were hunting routes, shelters from predators, and points for collecting plants. The place was perfect for learning to live together, creating the first sustainable settlements that would form the basis for future structures. The first days were cautious. People explored the territory, set up temporary shelters made of branches and bones of giants, stacked stones in protective walls. They observed the remaining predators and small herbivores. Every animal, every bird, every sound became a signal. The ability to understand their behavior has become the key to survival. The elders organized the first collective rounds of the territory. During the day, the group explored animal trails, checked shelters, and collected edible plants. At night, they kept fires burning, protecting children and the weak while watching wild animals. These first habits formed the basic rules of living together. Who goes ahead, who guards, who is ready to repel the threat. Soon the first rituals began to take shape. They were associated with seasonal migrations, with the memory of giants, with respect for the earth. Sometimes the ritual consisted of placing a stone by the campfire bordered by branches, symbolizing gratitude to the ancestors and the animals that had left. Sometimes it consisted of dancing around a campfire, reproducing the movements of animals that were no longer visible, but remained in memory. These rituals strengthened the collective identity, taught the younger ones discipline and attention, and formed respect for the world and for themselves. Collective hunting has become the main survival tool. The tribe learned to work together, create ambushes, and lure the beast into natural traps. Each participant in the hunt had a role: who drives, who distracts, who hides in an ambush. Spears, nets of twigs, traps of bones, all these were used together. The young watched the elders, gradually adopting skills, forming the first training system. The first mining became a reason for celebrations. The division of food, its proper distribution, respect for the slaughtered animal, all this has become part of the social code. People have learned to appreciate not only the result of hunting, but also the process, joint efforts, mutual support, and observation of the world. These skills have become the foundation of future cultural practices. Over time, the settlement grew. People began to fortify parking lots, create permanent food storage areas, light bonfires at certain points, and build the first protective fences. They used the bones of giants as building materials. Skulls, fangs, and tusks became not only symbols of the past, but also tools for the present. In the same years, there was an increase in attention to ritual sites. At the stones, near the campfires, near the old bones of the giants, people began to create signs, drawings on stones, marks on trees, patterns of branches. These signs served not only as a memory, but also as a guide for other members of the tribe. They taught, warned, and preserved knowledge about animals, plants, and roots. The elders passed on knowledge about animal behavior. They explained how to distinguish the trail of a wolf from the trail of a wild boar, how to understand the direction of a bear's movement by broken branches, how to notice the approach of a saber-tooth through changes in the forest silence. This knowledge was vital. Mistakes could cost lives. The young people learned patience, attention, mutual support, developed observation and analysis skills. Gradually, a social structure appeared in the tribe. The elders had knowledge and experience, so they made decisions about movement, hunting, and protection. The young ones followed the instructions, learning from their experience. Each member of the tribe understood that his survival was linked to collective discipline and attention to the world around him. Every year, humans have had more and more influence on the ecosystem. He didn't destroy it instantly, but he gradually changed the balance. The use of fire to control vegetation, the creation of fences to protect and control the territory, rational hunting, all this formed a new dynamic. Small herbivores have become the main resource. Predators are under threat, but not completely destroyed. Man learned to control the world without destroying it completely, creating the first stable systems. The world was full of lessons. The man observed the behavior of birds, their migrations, predicted the weather by clouds and wind. He studied plants, which were edible, which were medicinal, which could be used for traps or protection. These observations allowed him to gradually transform a chaotic world into a controlled environment, where knowledge and strategy were more important than strength and speed. Nights have become a time of learning and rituals. Around the campfires, elders told stories about mammoth giants, saber-toothed creatures, and megatheriums. They pointed to the drawings they left on the walls of caves and rocks and explained the symbols. The young people learned hunting skills, knew safety rules, and learned to understand the language of the land. These stories united the tribe, created memory and culture, and shaped the collective consciousness. Over time, man began to create the first settled places. He chose territories with sufficient water, protection from predators, the opportunity to hunt and collect plants. The first structures made of bones and branches became stronger and taller, protecting the tribe from wind and predators. Gradually, food storage areas, tools for butchering prey, and places for rituals appeared. These first settlements became the prototype of future villages. Man has learned to use the Earth's memory. He memorized trails, animal routes, places of water, plants. This knowledge was transmitted through gestures, drawings, touching the ground and bones. Gradually, a mental map of the territory was formed, which was more accurate than any simple line on a stone. With the development of settlements, the first social norms emerged. The division of labour, responsibility for security, food distribution, and junior training all formed stable rules. Every violation could cost a life, so discipline was strictly enforced. The team has become stronger than each individual. The world was gradually changing. The Earth, once dominated by giants, was now under human supervision. He learned harmony, patience, and strategy. He understood that power is not in destruction, but in attention, knowledge, and teamwork. This was how a new era was born, an era in which man became a key player, shaping the future of the world. With the first rays of light, the tribe began its movement. The mist still hung over the valleys, and the grass was covered with dew, glistening like precious stones. The man walked cautiously but confidently. He knew that there were animals lurking nearby, remnants of the old world. Wolves, bears, saber-toothed cats, they were still part of the ecosystem. But now the man was not just an observer, he was part of the plan, part of the strategy, part of the new order. The elders pointed out the giant's footprints, huge footprints left in the soft soil. It was a mammoth, another of the last representatives of the endangered population. The tribe decided to use collective hunting. Everyone knew their roles, who was driving, who was creating distracting noises, who was hiding in ambush. Spears, nets, traps, everything is ready. Every action is carefully coordinated. The course of the hunt was slow, almost imperceptible. People moved along the trails, trying not to disturb the silence of the forest. The hair covering his shoulders was still damp with dew, and his breathing was steady and calm. Every step was controlled, every pause made sense. The young people watched, learned patience, attention, and precision of movements. The elders prompted with their eyes, guided with gestures without saying a word. When the mammoth approached the pre-prepared trap, a group of several people created a distracting noise, the cracking of branches, the movement of skins on the ground. The beast froze, looking around, and this was the moment for action. The beaters gently guided the mammoth to a narrow part of the valley where an ambush awaited, and then the whole plan worked. The trap worked. The animal was surrounded. Its movement was limited. For the first time, young people saw the power of collective action. One man, one hunter, couldn't handle such a giant. But the tribe, as a whole, was successful. The mammoth fell, but not immediately. The fight was intense, and every human and animal movement was critically important. The elders observed, controlled the process, directed the actions, and trained the youth. After the extraction, the ritual of gratitude began. People were standing in a circle around the giant. The elders raised their spears and bones, pointing at the sky, earth, and water. There were sounds, quiet, almost whispering, but filled with meaning. The young ones repeated the movements of the elders, learned to respect the animal, to understand that the life of prey is a part of the life of the tribe. It was the first experience of symbolic action, the realization of the connection between death and life, between a man and a giant. The loot was divided. The elders controlled the distribution, explaining who gets the meat, who gets the bones, who gets the skins. Each piece had a meaning: meat for food, bones for tools and symbols, skin for clothing and shelters. This is how the tribe learned to use its resources fully, without wasting the gift of nature. These hunts gradually formed a collective memory. The young people memorized routes, traps, behavior of giants, and their habits. They understood that the strength of the tribe was not only in physical strength, but also in knowledge, strategy, discipline, and respect for nature. Every year such hunts were repeated. The tribe became more experienced, more organized. The first methods of observation appeared: signs on trees, stones, footprints indicating the presence of animals, the direction of their movement. These signs were the forerunners of writing, a way of transmitting information between generations. Rituals around loot have become more complex. People began to create patterns of bones and stones, depicting animals, hunting tracks, and migration routes. They used paints from earth and plants, leaving symbols on the cave walls that only the tribe members could understand. This was the beginning of symbolic thinking, the realization that actions, events, and beings can be designated, transmitted, and remembered. Over time, the tribe began to use fire not only for protection, but also for rituals. Bonfires were lit at certain times, sometimes at night when the wind died down, to create an atmosphere of celebration or remembrance. The flame became the center of the community, a symbol of strength, control, and unity. The first social roles related to rituals and hunting appeared. Some were responsible for organizing hunting, others for preparing bonfires, and others for storing food and tools. Everyone knew their responsibilities and understood the consequences of mistakes. This system of discipline and specialization became the prototype of the future social structure. The man watched other animals, learned survival strategies from them: wolves, teamwork, bears, caution and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These lessons were reflected in hunting, in the organization of the tribe, in the distribution of roles. Nature was becoming a teacher again, but now man was able to extract knowledge from it and apply it collectively. Over time, the tribe began to transmit knowledge through symbols and actions. The young people learned from the elders not only hunting, but also behavior, respect for nature, and the memory of giants. Each action had a double meaning: practical and symbolic. This formed a culture based on collective experience, memory, and respect for the world. The first settlements were fortified. People built more durable shelters, created fences made of bones and branches, and stored food in special places. The territory became organized, taking into account security, resources, and rituals. The first signs of long-term planning appeared, anticipating animal migrations, storing tools, and creating safe routes for the group to move. The world of giants was gradually disappearing, but the memory of it remained. Mammoths, saber-toothed cats, bears, and giant sloths have become part of the collective consciousness. Their images were preserved in drawings, rituals, bones, and signs. A person learned to live in a world without giants, but with their memory, used it for training, strategy, and survival. In the evening, when the bonfires were lit, the tribe gathered together. The elders told stories about past hunts, about giants, and how to use the land, animals, and plants. The young people observed, repeated gestures, learned symbols, and understood the connection between actions and consequences. It was a school of life, knowledge, and culture. Over time, the first myths appeared in the tribe. Stories about giants turned into legends, images of animals into symbols. The mammoth became the spirit of power, the saber-toothed cat became the spirit of hunting, and the bear became the guardian of the forest. These symbols united the tribe, shaped morality and ethics, and consolidated social norms. The man gradually realized that the world was under his control, but not completely. He respected the power of nature, remembered the giants of the past, and understood the consequences of his actions. This awareness became the basis of culture, symbolic thinking, and spiritual practices. The light gradually broke through the fog of the early morning. The ground, still wet with dew, gave off the smells of grass, moist soil, and forest rot scents that humans had already learned to distinguish with an accuracy beyond the reach of other living beings. The tribe followed the paths that the giants once laid. Now they are only a shadow of the past. The footprints of mammoths, giant sloths, and bears created mental maps that allowed people to learn how to navigate in space, anticipate animal movements, plan routes, and hunt. The elders have set up a new surveillance system. Every day, certain members of the tribe went on a reconnaissance mission. They recorded fresh tracks, listened to the sounds of the forest, and studied the behavior of the remaining predators. These data became the basis of collective knowledge. The young people observed, memorized, and analyzed. Each discovery contains new information that can be used for hunting, protection, or route planning. With the development of settlements, the first social hierarchies emerged. The elders had knowledge of animals, plants, and terrain. They made decisions about the movement of the tribe, hunting grounds, and rituals. The young ones followed their instructions, learning from their experience and skills. Everyone understood that survival depended on discipline, collective responsibility, and respect for knowledge. Collective hunting has become more difficult. The tribe has learned to use natural features, narrow valleys, thickets of bushes, streams and rocks. They developed corral and ambush tactics and made traps out of giant bones and twigs. The young people learned through practice, observing the elders and participating in the actions. Each successful hunt strengthened the collective memory and social ties. The first symbolic practices appeared. The spoils were divided not only physically, but also symbolically. The bones of the giants were used to build ritual circles, drawings, and patterns. Each action had a double meaning: practical, getting food and materials, and symbolic, respect for animals, ancestral memory, and harmony with nature. These practices strengthened the collective consciousness and shaped moral and ethical norms. Man gradually expanded his territories. The scouts marked new places with water, vegetation, and safe shelters. The elders made decisions on the relocation of camps or the creation of new camps. Each choice was based on knowledge about animal behavior, climate change, and resources. This system allowed the tribe to maintain stability and survival in a changing world. The first forms of early science appeared. The man observed the migrations of animals, the season, and the growth of plants. He noticed patterns, where to look for food in certain seasons, how to predict predator behavior, and which plants have medicinal properties. These observations were recorded in memory, transmitted through gestures, drawings, and practical actions. Gradually, a systematic knowledge of nature and its laws was formed. Rituals have become more complex. Bonfires were lit at certain times, often in connection with hunting, seasonal changes, or the memory of giants. People created patterns from bones and stones, depicted animals, their footprints, and migration routes. The young people learned to understand the symbols, repeated the movements, and took part in ceremonies. These rituals strengthened social bonds, developed collective thinking, and a symbolic perception of the world. With the increase in the number of the tribe, there was a need for the distribution of labour. Some were responsible for security, others for preparing food, and others for making tools and ritual symbols. This made it possible to use resources more efficiently, ensure safety, and transfer knowledge to the next generations. Specialization shaped new social roles that became the foundation of sustainable communities. The man studied the remaining predators. Wolves served as an example of teamwork, bears, caution and strength, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These observations were used to plan hunting, organize the tribe, and train the young. Nature became a teacher, man became a student and an observer at the same time. Over time, the tribe created mental maps of the territory. People memorized trails, animal routes, the location of water and plants, and danger zones. This knowledge was transmitted tacitly, by gestures, drawings on stones, touching the ground. This was how the collective memory was formed, allowing for effective survival and planning for future actions. The world of giants was gradually passing away, but his memory remained. Mammoths, saber-toothed cats, bears, and giant sloths have become symbols of the collective consciousness. Their images were preserved in drawings, rituals, bones, and signs. Man learned to live in a world without giants, but with their memory, using it for learning, strategy, and survival. The first forms of long-term planning appeared. People began to predict animal migrations, remember the places with the highest concentration of resources, and create safe routes for children and the weak. These skills allowed the tribe not only to survive, but also to form a stable system of interaction with the environment. Over time, people began to use symbols to manage the team. Signs on trees, rocks, and drawings on cave walls conveyed information about animals, routes, and dangers. The young people learned to read these symbols, interpret them, and put their knowledge into practice. This is how the first elements of communication and education emerged, allowing the transfer of experience between generations. Nights have become a time of learning and rituals. The elders told stories about giants, successful hunts, dangers and victories. The young people observed, repeated gestures, learned symbols, and understood the connection between actions and consequences. These practices formed a collective identity, strengthened social ties, and moral norms. The tribe gradually developed new territories, interacted with rare predators, and expanded its settlements and social structures. They learned not only to survive, but also to plan, understand the world, and use knowledge about nature and animals to create a sustainable system of life. A man became not just a hunter, but an organizer of a new order, a keeper of memory, a strategist and a teacher for future generations. The light was rising over the plains again, slowly warming the grass and moist soil. A light breeze carried the smells of forest, water, and freshly mown grass. The tribe gathered at a new camp chosen by the elders for its protection and proximity to water. In this valley, the land was soft, suitable for hunting and growing the first edible plants, and the forest nearby provided shelter and a resource for construction. Every day, people became more confident in their space. They built stronger shelters out of giant bones and branches, and created fences to protect children and the elderly from predators. These camps have become more than just temporary camps. They have turned into centers of knowledge, culture, and rituals. Each newly built place carried the experience of generations, the memory of giants, and traces of collective labor. The elders distributed the responsibilities. Some were watching the tracks of animals, others were collecting plants and roots, others were processing prey, and others were guarding the camp and campfires. The young ones learned from the elders, adopted skills, recorded observations in memory and in symbols. Each member of the tribe understood that survival depended on shared discipline and responsibility. Collective hunting has taken on new forms. People began to use sophisticated ambush and trap systems, combining animal observation with anticipating their routes. Sometimes hunting turned into a strategic operation, where every role was carefully calculated. The young people learned from the experience through participation, observation, and repetition of the actions of their elders, forming a deep understanding of animal behavior and hunting principles. The first rituals related to mining and the memory of giants appeared. After a successful hunt, people held gratitude ceremonies. A fire was lit in the center of the camp. Bones and bones of animals were laid out in symbolic patterns. Movements had meaning. These rituals taught respect for life, an understanding of the cycles of nature and harmony between man and the environment. The symbolism began to evolve. Drawings on the walls of caves and stones depicted animals, migration routes, and hunting scenes. These images served to transfer knowledge between generations, teaching young people not only hunting techniques, but also an understanding of the world, ancestral memory, and responsibility to the community. Symbols have become the language of memory and experience. Over time, the tribe realized the need for long-term planning. People began to record places of water, vegetation, and safe routes. They tracked seasonal climate changes, animal migration, and resource availability. These observations made it possible to plan movements and encampments, ensuring the stability of the tribe's life. Collective memory developed through learning, rituals, and practice. The young watched, repeated the movements of the elders, learned to read the signs on the ground and stones, understood the relationship between actions and consequences. Each member of the tribe was both a student and a keeper of knowledge. With the development of settlements, there was a need for the exchange of knowledge between groups. Different tribes, sometimes intersecting on hunting or near bodies of water, exchanged information about animal behavior, places with resources, dangers, and successful hunting methods. These contacts became the basis for the formation of the first knowledge exchange networks that strengthened survival and social ties. Rituals began to take on more complex forms. Symbolic dances, movements, and songs appeared that mimic animal behavior or the cycles of nature. These practices united the tribe, strengthened the collective consciousness, shaped morality and ethics, and consolidated social norms. Bonfires became the centers of these actions, symbols of light, strength, and memory. With the development of stable settlements and rituals, the first religious beliefs began to form. People began to perceive giants as guardian spirits. The mammoth is a symbol of strength and endurance. The saber-toothed cat is the spirit of hunting and precision. The bear is the guardian of the forest and the earth. These symbols helped explain natural phenomena, provided moral guidance, and united the tribe around common values and beliefs. Over time, collective hunting and rituals were integrated into daily life. Hunters knew their roles, rituals were repeated in certain seasons, symbols served learning and memory. Every deed, every booty, and every ceremony was part of a system that combined survival, culture, and spirituality. People began to realize that the strength of the tribe lies not only in physical strength, but also in knowledge, symbols, rituals, and collective memory. This awareness became the foundation of a sustainable society where everyone had a role, responsibility, and connection to the past, present, and future. The tribe expanded its territories, strengthened settlements, and monitored the remaining predators and herbivores, creating a stable life system. The world, once dominated by giants, was now under the watchful eye of man. He studied harmony with nature, used knowledge and strategy, forming a new era, the era of man as a keeper of memory, organizer of space and creator of culture. Over time, the tribe began to record sightings using symbols on rocks and trees. These signs conveyed knowledge about animal routes, resource locations, dangers, and successful hunting strategies. The young people learned to read and interpret these symbols, using them for teaching and planning. This is how the first elements of communication, science, and systems thinking were formed. Nights have become a time of experience transfer, symbols, and rituals. The elders told stories about giants, hunting, and survival, demonstrated movements, symbols, and signs. The young people repeated them, understood the meaning and significance of their actions, and realized their responsibility for preserving knowledge. These practices reinforced collective consciousness, morality, and social norms. The tribe gradually became more organized. It developed new territories, expanded settlements, built safe routes, strengthened protection, and developed rituals. Man has learned to use collective knowledge to survive, strengthen the social structure, and preserve the memory of the world of giants. Over time, symbols and rituals became the center of the tribe's identity. Mammoths, saber-toothed cats, bears, and other giants turned into guardian spirits, symbols of strength, wisdom, and harmony. These images united the tribe, helped explain natural phenomena, shaped morality and ethics, and consolidated social norms. Man gradually turned from an observer into an active participant in the new world. He not only survived, but also created structure, culture, symbols, and rituals, passing on knowledge to the next generations. The world of giants remained in the memory, but its traces were used for training, strategy, and spiritual development. At first light, the tribe packed up their belongings and headed for the border of the territory, where the forest gave way to an open valley. This place was known as the Crossroads of the Winds. Animal migration routes, river paths and trails of other tribes converged here. The elders saw in this place not only practical significance, but also symbolic. It connected the human world with the world of animals and other people, creating a point of interaction and exchange. The young ones followed the elders, observing their actions and listening to their silent instructions. Every step was important. There were traces of giants that people had been following since ancient times, and new signs, traces of other tribes. The ability to read the earth has become one of the key skills that shape the experience and memory of a generation. Soon the first contacts with other tribes appeared. They exchanged not only goods, but also knowledge. Stone arrowheads made of various rocks, hides, woven nets. All this became an object of exchange. But even more important was the transmission of information about animal behaviour, migration routes, water locations and terrain features. This exchange of knowledge has become the basis for collective survival and mutual assistance. Trade was not only of practical importance. She strengthened social ties, built trust, and created the first systems of norms and rules. People learned to negotiate, understand the value of objects, and take into account the needs of others. This process was the basis for a more complex organisation of society and culture. The first technologies related to hunting and everyday life appeared. Stone tools have become more precise and more durable. The bones and tusks of the giants were used to make tools that helped in the extraction of food, the construction of shelters and rituals. The skins were processed in such a way as to protect from the cold, to create clothes and blankets. Each innovation had a double meaning, practical and symbolic. With the development of technology, the first workshops and skill exchange centres have emerged. The young people learned from the elders the precise processing of stone, wood, and bones. They observed the process, repeated the movements, and mastered the methods of making tools and symbolic objects. These workshops have become knowledge transfer centres, combining practice, observation, and learning. Rituals have integrated with technology. Making tools and symbols was accompanied by ceremonies, lighting bonfires, certain hand movements, patterns of stones and bones. These actions strengthened social ties, formed morals and a symbolic perception of the world. The young people learn that every tool and every technology carries knowledge, memory and responsibility. Over time, the tribe expanded its territory, creating new settlements. These new points were linked to animal migration routes, water resources, and vegetation. The elders chose locations based on safety, access to resources, and opportunities to interact with other tribes. Each settlement became a centre of culture, knowledge, and rituals. Collective memory continued to evolve. People memorized animal routes, places with resources, terrain features, and predator behavior. This knowledge was transmitted through symbols, drawings, gestures, and practice. The young people learned how to interpret information, put it into practice, and pass it on. This was how the stability of society and the ability to adapt to changes in the world were formed. Trade and knowledge exchange stimulated the development of culture. The tribes exchanged not only objects, but also ritual practices, symbols, knowledge about animal behavior, seasonal changes, and the weather. These contacts created a common network of collective experiences, strengthening the social structure and increasing the chances of survival. The rituals became more complex. Dances, songs, movements, and symbols reflected animal behavior, the cycles of nature, and the collective experience. Bonfires have become the centers of these practices, symbols of life, strength, and memory. People understood that ritual is not only a spiritual action, but also a way to consolidate knowledge, educate the young, and strengthen the social structure. Over time, the first beginnings of strategic planning appeared. People predicted animal migrations, chose places for hunting, food storage, and safe routes. These skills allowed the tribe not only to survive, but also to create stable systems of interaction with the environment, strengthening social ties and collective consciousness. The man studied the remaining predators, adopting their strategies. Wolves showed the power of teamwork, bears, caution and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These lessons were used to organize hunting, strengthen the social structure and train the young. Nature continued to be a teacher, man an observer, a student and a creator at the same time. The symbolism has evolved. Drawings on cave walls and stones, patterns of bones and stones, movements in ritual dances. All this became the language of knowledge, experience, and memory transmission. Young people learned to understand the meaning of actions, to use information for survival and the formation of social and cultural identity. The tribe gradually turned into an organized community. It developed new territories, fortified settlements, and developed technology, trade, and rituals. The world, once dominated by giants, was now under human surveillance. He studied harmony with nature, used knowledge, strategy, and symbolism, creating a new era, the era of man as an organizer, keeper of memory, and creator of culture. Over time, the exchange between the tribes became regular. It included not only objects and technologies, but also stories, knowledge about animals, plants, and terrain. These contacts contributed to the formation of common rules, norms, and social structures. The young people learned to negotiate, understand the value of information, and respect the experience of others. The nights became a time of collective learning and rituals. The elders told stories, showed movements, symbols, and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the significance of each action. These practices reinforced collective consciousness, morality, social norms, and the ability to adapt to changes in the world. Man gradually began to create sustainable settlements, develop technology, culture, and rituals. He learned how to combine collective knowledge, strengthen the social structure, preserve the memory of giants, and use it for survival and cultural development. The world of giants remained in the memory, but its traces were used for training, strategy, and spiritual growth. The early morning light slid across the hills and valleys, enlivening the grasses and leaves of the trees. The tribe was leaving their camp, heading towards the border of the territories, where the open plains gave way to forests. This place was known as the Gate of Memory. Animal migration routes, river trails, and paths of neighboring tribes converged here. The elders explained that the fate of the community is being decided here. Who will survive? Who will receive knowledge and resources? Who will preserve the memory of the giants? The elders organized a reconnaissance. A group of young people and adults walked in front, observing the tracks of animals and the tracks of other tribes. Every step was part of the strategy. People read the earth: fresh wolf footprints, mammoth footprints, broken tree branches. All this indicated movement and activity of both animals and neighboring tribes. Soon, the tribe encountered other people. These meetings were not random. The elders had planned the exchange in advance. The interaction included not only trade, but also the exchange of knowledge. Stone arrowheads, hides, and nets were transferred in exchange for information about animal migrations, water locations, and resources. These contacts strengthened social ties and collective knowledge. The first signs of leadership have appeared. Elders with experience and knowledge of the territory made decisions about movements, hunting, and rituals. They assigned roles: who leads the hunt, who monitors security, who is responsible for training the young. The young people learned to respect their elders, learn from their experiences, and realize their responsibility to the community. Collective rituals have become the center of social life. After hunting or successful prey, people held ceremonies involving symbolic dances, songs, and patterns of stones and bones. These rituals strengthened social ties, shaped morals, and passed on knowledge and experience to new generations. Bonfires were symbols of life, strength, and memory. With the development of settlements, the tribe began to exchange ritual practices and symbols with other groups. These contacts created cultural diversity. Different tribes had their own drawings, songs, and rituals, but they understood the meaning and significance of each other's actions. This formed a common system of values and norms, strengthened trust and shared survival. Technology developed in parallel with culture. Stone tools became more precise and durable. The skins and bones of the giants were used to create tools, clothing, and ritual objects. Workshops where they taught materials processing became knowledge transfer centers. The young ones learned from the elders, repeated the movements, and understood the symbolism of each instrument. Collective hunting has become more complicated. The tribe has learned to coordinate actions in large spaces, to use natural shelters and terrain for ambushes and pens. Each hunt required a strategy, an understanding of animal behavior, and role allocation. The young people learned from the experience through participation, observation, and repetition of the actions of their elders, forming a deep understanding of the ecosystem and social structures. The first elements of diplomacy between the tribes appeared. Sharing knowledge, goods, and rituals required trust and rules of conduct. The elders established agreements, monitored the fulfillment of obligations, and resolved conflicts. These early forms of diplomacy provided the foundation for sustainable relationships, mutual assistance, and collective survival. The symbolism has evolved. Drawings on stones and trees, patterns of bones and stones, movements in ritual dances. All this has become the language of knowledge, experience, and memory transmission. Young people learn to understand the meaning of actions, to use information for survival and identity formation. Symbols have become the foundation of collective memory and social discipline. Over time, the tribe formed stable social structures. Groups appeared by specialization: hunters, knowledge keepers, defenders, toolmakers. Each group had its own responsibilities, which increased efficiency, protected the tribe, and strengthened social ties. Humans learned to understand and predict the behavior of predators and herbivores. Wolves showed the power of teamwork, bears, caution and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These observations were used to plan hunting, organize settlements, and train the young. Nature continued to be a teacher, and man continued to be a student, an observer, and a strategist at the same time. With the development of social and cultural diversity, collective planning has emerged. The tribe predicted animal migrations, chose places for hunting and gathering resources, and created safe routes and zones. These skills allowed not only to survive, but also to form a stable system of life, strengthening social and cultural ties. Rituals and symbols were integrated into everyday life. They taught, combined, and passed on experience and knowledge. The young people understood that every drawing, every dance, and every movement carries meaning, memory, and responsibility. Over time, these practices became a central part of culture, shaping morality, ethics, and social identity. The tribe gradually strengthened settlements, expanded territories, developed technologies, and exchanged knowledge and rituals with other groups. A man became not just a hunter, but also an organizer, a keeper of memory, a strategist, and a creator of culture. The world of giants remained in the memory, but its traces were used for training, survival, and spiritual development. The exchange between the tribes became regular and systematic. It included subjects, knowledge about animals and plants, and ritual practices. These contacts formed common rules, norms, and social structures. The young people learned to negotiate, understand the value of information, and respect the experience of others. Nights became a time of collective learning, rituals, and symbol transmission. The elders told stories, showed movements and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the meaning of the actions and their consequences. These practices reinforced collective consciousness, morality, social norms, and the ability to adapt to changes in the world. Man gradually created stable settlements, developed technologies, culture and rituals, combining knowledge for survival, social structure, and preservation of the memory of giants. The world of giants remained in the memory, but its traces were used for training, strategy, and spiritual growth. At dawn, the tribe rose from their camp on the hills, where the grass was still glistening with morning dew. The wind carried the smell of the forest and moist soil, and in the distance you could hear the cries of birds and the faint sound of distant rivers. The elders determined the direction of movement by assessing the terrain, animal tracks, and neighbouring tribes. Every decision was strategic. Survival, safety, and success of future hunts depended on the choice of route. With experience came an understanding of the boundaries of the territories. The tribe learned to distinguish between their lands, the zones of neighbouring groups, and neutral areas. This knowledge was formed through observation, experience, and information exchange with other tribes. Borders weren't just lines on the ground, they were signs of strength, memory, and collective control. Contacts with other tribes became more difficult. Some meetings were of a diplomatic nature, exchange of resources, knowledge about animals and plants, rituals and symbols. The elders set the rules of interaction, ensured compliance with agreements, and resolved conflicts. These early forms of diplomacy strengthened social bonds, built trust, and promoted collective survival. However, not all meetings were peaceful. Sometimes there were clashes over resources, territories, or control over important animal migration routes. In such cases, the tribe used their knowledge of the landscape, animals, and tactics to protect their interests. The first elements of war appeared: strategic ambushes, enemy surveillance, movement planning, and role allocation. Collective hunting and territorial defense have become interconnected. People understood that hunting is not only about getting food, but also strengthening the position of the tribe. Control over key animal migration zones ensured the stability of resources, protection from predators and neighbouring groups. The young people watched how the elders planned hunting and defence, learned strategy and coordination of actions. With the development of defence and diplomacy, the first elements of permanent alliances emerged. The tribes exchanged information, hunting resources and ritual practices, creating mutually beneficial relationships. These connections formed the basis of collective experience, strengthened social structures, and ensured survival in large areas. Rituals and symbolic practices deepened. After a successful hunt or defense of the territory, the tribe held ceremonies that included dances, songs, and patterns of bones and stones. These actions strengthened morality, collective memory, and social bonds. Bonfires and symbols have become centers of spiritual and cultural life, teaching young people respect for nature and the memory of giants. With the development of territorial control, the first elements of settlement planning appeared. People chose safe places for camps, taking into account access to water, vegetation and resources, as well as proximity to neighbouring tribes and possible migration routes for animals. These decisions were based on the knowledge of the area, the experience of the elders, and the observations of the young. Technology has evolved along with culture and protection. Stone tools became more precise and durable, and the bones and tusks of the giants were used to make tools and weapons. The skins served not only to protect against the cold, but also to strengthen defensive structures and ritual objects. Workshops remained centers of knowledge and skills transfer. Symbolism and rituals were integrated with protection and diplomacy. Young people learned through participation in ceremonies and hunting to understand the meaning of each action. Symbols, movements, and signs reflected experience, memory, and responsibility. This formed collective identity, strengthened morality and social norms. The man observed the remaining predators and used their strategies for hunting and protection. Wolves showed teamwork, bears, strength and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These lessons were integrated into the tactics of the tribe, contributing to the survival and strengthening of the social structure. The tribe developed stable settlements with defense and security in mind. Fences, observation points, and driving routes were carefully planned. Young people learned to predict the actions of neighbouring groups, protect resources, and coordinate collective actions. These skills were key to the survival and development of society. Over time, symbolism and rituals became the centres of identity. Images of giants, drawings on walls and stones, patterns of bones, all this strengthened collective memory, social ties, and morality. Rituals united the tribe, passed on knowledge and experience, forming the basis of culture and spiritual life. The exchange between the tribes has become regular and systematic. It included objects, technologies, knowledge about animals and plants, and rituals. These contacts formed common rules, norms, and social structures. The young people learned to negotiate, understand the value of information, and respect the experience of others. Nights became a time of collective learning, rituals and symbol transmission. The elders told stories, demonstrated movements and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the meaning of their actions and their consequences. These practices strengthened the collective consciousness, morality, and social norms, and contributed to adaptation to changes in the world. Man gradually strengthened settlements, developed technologies, exchanged knowledge and rituals, forming a stable social structure. The world of giants remained in memory, but its traces were used for training, strategy, defense, and spiritual development. Over time, the tribe learned to use territorial control, diplomatic ties, collective rituals, and symbols to create a stable system of life. Man has become an organizer, a keeper of memory and culture, capable of surviving and developing in a world where giants remain only in memory and symbols. At dawn, the tribe rose from their camp on the hills, where the grass was still glistening with dew and a light wind carried the smells of the forest and moist earth. The elders directed the movement, taking into account the migration routes of animals, the location of neighbouring tribes, and the possibilities of defence. Every decision was of strategic importance. Survival, success of hunting, and protection of resources depended on the choice of the route. With experience came an understanding of complex social hierarchies. Elders with knowledge of the area, animal behaviour, and neighbouring groups made key decisions. They assigned roles: who leads the hunt, who oversees security, who is responsible for the training of the young and rituals. The young people learned to respect their elders, learn from their experiences, and realise their responsibility to the community. The first elements of power emerged within the tribe. The elders supervised the observance of the rules, the allocation of resources, and the fulfillment of collective tasks. People understood that survival depends not only on strength, but also on discipline, knowledge, and coordination of actions. These first hierarchies became the basis of the social structure, ensuring stability and collective survival. Territorial control has become a key element of the tribe's strategy. People observed the migration routes of animals, the activity of neighbouring groups, and the location of resources. Every parking lot, every hunting trail, and every safe zone has been thoroughly studied, marked, and protected. This knowledge was passed on to new generations through training, observation, and symbolism. Collective wars and conflicts over resources began to be systemic in nature. The tribe used ambush, surveillance, and coordination strategies. People learned to predict the behaviour of neighbours and animals, and joined forces to protect territories and resources. These conflicts shaped planning, teamwork, and strategic thinking skills. Rituals have become an integral part of social and spiritual life. After successful hunting, defending the territory, or forming alliances, the tribe held ceremonies with dances, songs, and patterns of bones and stones. These rituals reinforced morality, collective memory, and social bonds. Bonfires and symbols became centres of spiritual life and learning. Religious beliefs deepened. People perceived giants as guardian spirits, mammoths, a symbol of strength and endurance, saber-toothed cats, precision and stealth, bears, patience and caution. These images were used to explain natural phenomena, form moral norms, and unite the tribe around common values. Technology has evolved along with social and spiritual practices. Stone tools became more precise and durable, and the bones and tusks of the giants were used to make tools, weapons, and ritual objects. The skins protected not only from the cold, but also served to strengthen defensive structures. Workshops remained centres of knowledge and skills transfer, combining practice, observation, and symbolism. Symbolism was integrated with leadership and collective action. Drawings, patterns, and ritual movements reflected experience, memory, and responsibility. Young people learned to interpret symbols, use knowledge for hunting, protection, and planning. These practices strengthened social discipline and formed a collective consciousness. Man observed the predators and used their strategies for hunting and defense. Wolves showed teamwork, bears, strength and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These lessons were integrated into the tactics of the tribe, contributing to the survival and strengthening of the social structure. The tribe developed stable settlements with defense and security in mind. Fences, observation points, and driving routes were carefully planned. Young people learned to predict the actions of neighbours, protect resources, and coordinate collective actions. These skills ensured the stability and development of society. Over time, the exchange between the tribes became regular and systematic. It included objects, technologies, knowledge about animals and plants, and rituals. These contacts formed common rules, norms, and social structures, strengthening trust and mutual assistance. Nights became a time of learning, rituals, and symbol transmission. The elders told stories, demonstrated movements and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the meaning of their actions and their consequences. These practices shaped collective consciousness, morality, social norms, and the ability to adapt to changes in the world. The tribe gradually strengthened settlements, expanded the territory, developed technologies, exchanged knowledge and rituals. A person became an organizer, a keeper of memory, a strategist, and a creator of culture. The world of giants remained in memory, but its traces were used for training, strategy, defense, and spiritual development. Over time, the tribe learned to use territorial control, diplomatic ties, collective rituals and symbols to create a stable system of life. Man became the center of the organization, the defender, the keeper of memory and culture, able to survive and develop in a world where giants remained only in memory and symbols. With the first rays of the sun, the tribe rose from the camp located on the edge of the forest, where the soft grass glistened with dew, and the wind carried the smells of moist earth and fresh leaves. The elders chose the direction of movement, taking into account the migration routes of animals, the location of neighboring tribes and natural shelters. Every step was important. Every path was the result of observations and knowledge accumulated over generations. The tribe was beginning to realize the value of collective memory. People recorded the migration routes of mammoths and rhinoceroses, predator markings, places with water and edible vegetation. This knowledge was transmitted through observation, symbolism, and rituals, becoming the basis of a sustainable existence. The young people learned to read animal tracks and signs of other people, gradually mastering the world as a whole. The first cultural traditions were formed. Every successful event hunting, camp protection, exchange with other tribes was accompanied by a ritual. People danced around campfires, sang songs, and created patterns of bones, stones, and skins. These actions conveyed knowledge about animals, about the landscape, about the behavior of neighbors, and about the collective strategy of survival. Religious practices were strengthened. The giants of the past, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, bears, and others, were perceived as guardian spirits. People worshipped them through drawings, patterns, and rituals. The mammoth symbolized strength and endurance, the saber-toothed cat symbolized precision and stealth, and the bear symbolized caution and patience. These images were integrated into the collective identity and moral norms. Over time, the tribe developed complex social rules. The elders assigned roles: who hunts, who monitors security, who teaches the young, who is responsible for rituals. The young people learned to respect their elders, learn from their experiences, and realize their responsibility to the community. These rules made it possible to maintain order, discipline, and efficiency in collective life. Technology and cultural practices developed in parallel. Stone tools became more sophisticated, and the bones and tusks of the giants were used for tools, weapons, and ritual items. The skins and fibers of the plants served to protect, clothe, and strengthen structures. The workshops remained centers of learning, where experience and knowledge were passed on from the elders to the young. Collective hunting has reached a new level of organization. The tribe used strategic ambushes, animal herding, and coordination over large areas. Each hunt was both a practical and educational process. The young adopted the skills of the elders, observed the behavior of animals, studied tactics and strategy. Diplomacy between the tribes was strengthened through the exchange of ritual practices and knowledge. The tribes exchanged technologies, symbols, information about migrations and resources. These contacts created cultural diversity, formed trust, and shared responsibility for survival. The rituals became more and more complex. Dances, songs, and patterns reflected the cycles of nature, animal migration, hunting strategy, and collective achievements. Bonfires and symbolic patterns served as centers of learning and spiritual life, passing on experience, knowledge, and moral norms to the next generations. The symbolism was integrated into the social structure. The young people learned to interpret drawings and patterns, to understand ritual actions and their importance for survival and cultural identity. These practices strengthened morality, collective consciousness, and social bonds. The man observed the behavior of predators, adopting their strategies. Wolves demonstrated teamwork, bears, strength and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. These lessons were used to organize hunting, protect the territory, and train the young. Nature remained the teacher, and man remained the student and strategist. The tribe expanded territories and fortified settlements. It took into account access to water, vegetation, resources, and animal migration routes. Every parking lot, observation point, and camp has been carefully designed for protection and a stable existence. Over time, the exchange between the tribes became regular and systematic. It included objects, technologies, knowledge about animals and plants, and rituals. These contacts formed common rules, norms, and social structures. The young people learned to negotiate, understand the value of information, and respect the experience of others. Nights became a time of collective learning, rituals, and symbol transmission. The elders told stories, demonstrated movements and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the meaning of their actions and their consequences. These practices shaped collective consciousness, morality, and the ability to adapt to change. Man gradually strengthened settlements, developed technologies, exchanged knowledge and rituals, forming a stable social structure. The world of giants remained in the memory, but its traces were used for training, strategy, and spiritual development. Over time, the tribe has learned to use territorial control, diplomatic ties, collective rituals and symbols to create a stable system of life. Man has become an organizer, a keeper of memory and culture, capable of surviving and developing in a world where giants remain only in memory and symbols. The early morning brought a soft light that slid across the hills and valleys, illuminating the camps of the tribe. The fog slowly dissipated, leaving dew on the grass and exposing animal tracks. The elders pointed the way to new sites, using knowledge about the migration of giants and the behavior of neighboring tribes. Every choice of path mattered. Hunting, safety, and future contacts with other communities depended on it. With the development of social structures, it became necessary to consolidate knowledge in symbols. The first signs and engravings appeared on rocks, trees, and cave walls. These symbols recorded the migration routes of mammoths and rhinoceroses, watering holes, danger zones, and the location of neighboring tribes. Young people learned to recognize these signs, connect them with real objects and events, forming an early system of collective memory. The first myths about giants appeared. Mammoths have become symbols of strength and endurance. Saber-toothed cats, stealth and precision. Bears, patience and caution. These myths explained natural phenomena, cycles of life and death, as well as animal behavior. They became the basis of collective experience and moral norms, uniting the tribe around common values. Rituals and symbolic actions deepened. Dances, songs, and patterns of bones and stones served both spiritual, educational, and practical purposes. They consolidated knowledge about animals, hunting, neighborhood behavior, and collective survival strategies. Bonfires and symbolic centers have become places of experience transfer, education of the young, and strengthening of the social structure. Over time, the tribe began to develop early forms of writing. The first symbols recorded not only physical objects, but also abstract concepts: time, seasonal cycles, important events. These signs made it possible to preserve the memory of giants and their habits, transfer knowledge between generations, and strengthen the collective consciousness. Social institutions became more complex. The elders supervised the observance of the rules, the allocation of roles and resources, the organization of rituals, and the training of the young. The young people learned to respect their elders, learn from experience, and accept responsibility. These institutions ensured the discipline, efficiency, and stability of the community. Diplomacy and exchange between tribes have reached a new level. In addition to objects and technologies, myths, ritual practices, and symbols were exchanged. These contacts shaped cultural diversity, strengthened trust, and created a common system of norms and rules. Rituals became even more symbolic. Dances, songs, and patterns reflected the cycles of nature, animal migration, hunting, and the collective achievements of the tribe. Bonfires and symbolic centers were used for teaching, spiritual development, and strengthening the social structure. Humans continued to observe the behavior of predators and integrate their strategies into hunting, defense, and collective action. Wolves demonstrated teamwork, bears, strength and patience, saber-toothed cats, stealth, and precision. These lessons have become part of the collective experience and social memory. The tribe expanded territories, strengthened settlements, and created a stable interaction with nature. Each settlement, observation point, and camp has been carefully thought out in terms of security, resources, and strategic capabilities. The exchange between the tribes has become systematic and regular, included objects, technologies, knowledge about animals and plants, rituals and symbols. These contacts formed common rules, norms, and social structures, strengthening trust and mutual assistance. Nights became a time of collective learning, rituals, and symbol transmission. The elders told stories, demonstrated movements and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the meaning of their actions and their consequences. These practices shaped collective consciousness, morality, and the ability to adapt to change. The tribe gradually strengthened settlements, developed technologies, exchanged knowledge and rituals, forming a stable social structure. Man became an organizer, a keeper of memory and culture, capable of surviving and developing in a world where giants remained only in memory and symbols. Over time, the tribe learned to use territorial control, diplomatic ties, collective rituals and symbols to create a stable system of life. Man became the center of the organization, the defender, the keeper of memory and culture. Myths about giants, early writing and rituals united the tribe, creating the basis for future cultural and social development. From the first rays of the sun, the tribe left their camp located on the border of the forest and the open plain. The light fog was dissipating, leaving dew on the grass, and the sound of rivers and the cries of distant birds could be heard in the air. The elders determined the path, taking into account the migration routes of the giants, the activity of neighboring tribes and natural shelters. Every choice mattered. Hunting, resource protection, and community life depended on it. Over time, the tribe has developed complex social institutions. The elders supervised the distribution of roles, the observance of rules, the organization of rituals, and the training of the young. The young people learned to respect their elders, learn from their experiences, and realize their responsibility to the community. These structures ensured order, discipline, and efficiency, allowing the tribe to survive in an environment of constant change. The first forms of law and punishment appeared. Violations of the rules, encroachments on resources, aggression towards tribal members, or disrespect for rituals were severely but fairly punished. Punishments could be symbolic: deprivation of participation in the ritual, temporary suspension from hunting, physical impact in rare cases. These measures consolidated social norms, formed a sense of collective responsibility and discipline. Religious practices became more and more complex. The tribe revered the giants of the past as guardian spirits. Mammoths symbolized strength, endurance, and teamwork. Saber-toothed cats symbolized stealth, precision, and strategy. Bears symbolized patience, caution, and the ability to defend alone. These images were used to explain natural phenomena, educate the young, and form moral norms. Rituals included dancing, songs, bone and stone patterns, fire and symbolic actions. They simultaneously taught, united, transmitted the memory of giants, and consolidated collective knowledge about animal behavior, resources, and neighbors. The young people learned through participation and observation, realizing the meaning of each movement and symbol. The tribe has learned how to integrate myths about giants into everyday life. Mammoths inspired collective hunting and herd protection. Saber-toothed cats taught stealth and precision in ambushes. Bears taught patience and caution in single actions. These images shaped the collective consciousness, moral guidelines, and social skills, ensuring survival. Technology continued to evolve. Stone tools became more precise and durable, and the bones and tusks of the giants were used to create tools, weapons, and ritual objects. The skins protected from the cold and reinforced defensive structures. The workshops remained centers of experience transfer, combining practice, observation, and symbolism. Social ties were strengthened through exchanges with neighboring tribes. Objects, technologies, knowledge about animals and plants, rituals and symbols were passed on between the groups, creating trust and mutual assistance. These contacts shaped common norms, rules, and cultural diversity, contributing to collective resilience. Nights became a time of learning, rituals, and symbol transmission. The elders told stories, demonstrated movements and signs. The young people repeated them, realizing the meaning of their actions and their consequences. These practices reinforced collective consciousness, morality, social norms, and the ability to adapt to changes in the world. The tribe expanded the territory, strengthened settlements, and created a stable system of life. Each settlement, observation point, and camp was thought out in terms of security, resources, and strategic capabilities. Humans have learned to predict animal migrations, neighborhood behavior, and climate variability, using this knowledge to plan hunting, protection, and rituals. Over time, the collective consciousness has reached a high level of organization. Elders, hunters, protectors, ritual keepers, and young people learning skills formed a single social organism. Everyone knew their role, understood their responsibility, and participated in preserving the memory of the giants. Interaction with nature has become more conscious. The tribe observed the predators, adopted their strategies and integrated them into hunting and protection. Wolves taught teamwork, bears taught patience and strength, saber-toothed cats taught stealth and precision. These lessons have become part of the collective experience, strengthening social and cultural skills. The myths and rituals of the giants remained central to spiritual life. Mammoths symbolize strength and endurance, saber-toothed cats symbolize strategy and stealth, bears symbolize patience and solitary power. These images explained what was happening in the world, shaped morals and social norms, united the tribe and strengthened the collective consciousness. Over time, the tribe realized the inevitability of change. Animal migrations were declining, giants were disappearing, the climate was fluctuating, and new threats were coming from outside. People used their accumulated knowledge, rituals, and collective consciousness to adapt to new conditions. They preserved the memory of the giants, consolidating it in myths, symbols, and rituals, passing it on to future generations. The decline of the Titans was slow and inevitable. The last mammoths were retreating to the northern plains, the saber-toothed cats were thinning, and the bears were becoming more and more secretive. The tribe has observed these changes using experience, rituals, and collective knowledge to adapt. People became the rightful masters of the world, relying on the memory of the giants and the wisdom of the elders. The last scenes showed the tribe on the Dawn Plain. Young people played around campfires, elders watched the migration of animals, and myths about giants remained in memory, in drawings, in rituals and symbols. The world was changing, the giants were disappearing, but man continued to study, preserve his memory, and build a social and spiritual life. The decline of the Titans ended the era of megafauna dominance, but ushered in a new era, the era of man. The tribe, its social institutions, rituals, myths, and symbols became the basis of the future civilizational development. Man has become a keeper of memory, an organizer, a strategist, a spiritual being, and the rightful master of the world where giants once reigned.